What's up? Sucho King here. Welcome back. We are looking at the Isles roadmap today, and I'm just gonna be like familiarizing myself with it, analyzing it, kind of looking at it from the perspective of somebody who also works on video games. So this will be interesting. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat as I'm going. But let's see. Let's take a look here. Because they just came out with the new. This is the current roadmap. It's been updated with adjustments and directions based on, I guess, everything that's been happening so far. But let's just go back and see where we started on the roadmap here with update 2. This is after Evrima release. Back on, let me see, did they have a date here? This is April 20, 2021. I think it was before that. That's last year. Anyways, completed the Stegosaurus, Hypsilophodon, Carnotaurus. They completed flesh chunks. I think this is important right here. This, as you know, is the first time they implemented this. And if anyone plays Path of Titans like I do, you know that Path of Titans actually came out with meat chunks before them. This is important because of this part right here. They changed, well, they didn't change it. They just called their implementation flesh chunks instead of meat chunks. So does that mean anything? Well, it might mean a little bit. It might mean that they thought that it was to their advantage not to just call it meat chunks because another game is calling it that, which is important if you feel like Path of Titans is competition for the Isle. Especially back then. If you thought so back then you would think so more so now, because you know that other game is further along than now, or is further along than it was back then. They also did additional admin functionality. They did basic day-night cycle. Was that the case? I vaguely remember, like, for a long time you only had daylight in the environment. Completed bleeding system. Okay, regional spawn system, human structures, and blood in previous updates. Now, I can't quite remember if all of this actually happened in the same update, but they definitely all happened. Let's see. Then we go to update 3. Update 3 went to the water, and this is when the Pteranodon came out as well, I think. So they had schooling fish, elite fish, oxygen rework. Schooling fish versus elite fish, I think, is just, I'm actually not sure what that is. I would assume at first glance that your schooling fish would be something like particles, like fish that you can't eat, but they're just kind of part of the environment, kind of like scenery, just like if you have birds in the trees or whatever, but you can't really interact with them. Your elite fish would probably be the edible ones. So, but from what I've seen, every fish in the Isle is edible if you can bite it. So I'm not sure if maybe that was the plan at first and they changed it, or they have that available and don't use it, but I'm not sure. I know that in Path of Titans they have fish that school that are not, basically they're not AI, they're really just part of the setting. It's the same with birds too. Oxygen rework, I'm not really sure what that is, but I remember as playing as Utah, you could run on the bottom of the river back in the day. Deinosuchus, playable, Tyranno. Alright, so yeah, we got the Deinosuchus, which was the first water playable dino in the Isle.
You can eat a fish in the school of fish.
Hey, what's up, Teen Tano? Okay, so you can eat a. Okay, so in other words, it's not exactly how I thought. Well, then I don't know the differentiation. It could be exactly as I'm saying, and they just don't really. They don't really have just the ones that like you can't eat or whatever. Like they could have worked on it and not implemented it, but I don't know the difference between elite and schooling fish if that's the case. Maybe they just differentiate schooling fish versus ones that just swim by themselves, or the elite fish would be the bigger ones. I'm not totally sure. Probably should play that to figure it out. Anyways,
Teen to know. The hitbox is just hard to hit.
Oh, gotcha. Let's see here.
And I'm chill like that.
Activity. Attach new heights, new depths. New heights, new depths. I'm not sure what that is. I think that was the name of like a blog update that they did where they talked about new heights and new depths because it was their first time implementing a flying gameplay and the first time implementing a water gameplay. So they gained 2 dimensions of gameplay in one update at this point in time. They didn't have anything in the air or in the water before. Deleted the fish. Attachments. Completed Pteranodon. Completed Dinosuchus. Oxygen. Elite fish. Golden fish. Alright, so that wraps up update 3. Let's look at the 3.5 again. This one I can remember Siza did a video for it. So they did Guvi, Utah Raptor, Pounce. Oh, so I think there was a good amount of time between 3 and 3.5 now that I'm remembering it. Because for the longest time, like you had to be an adult Utah to Pounce. But then here we got Utah, Pounce. Now this would also be the first update in a while where you didn't get a new dino, so it was, I think it's completely mechanics based. So Utah Pounce for Juvies, interactive water system, so that's the waves of the ripples on top of the water. Dryosaurus bucking, so like an anti-pounce mechanic. Pteranodon bucking, same thing. Hypsilophodon pinning. Spectator mode improvements, that would be for your admins. Ranger station, that would be a human structure. Utility station. Alright, so I think right around this time, Visual Tech 49, I think is his name, was joining the team, and he was implementing his stuff that he was making. So that's when we start to get the human structures. Let's see, completed utility station with interiors on this card. Completed ranger station. Specular mode improvements on this card. Oh, spectator mode. Hypsilophodon pinning. Pteranodon. So these are basically echoing what's up here, but the way Trello works is any change you make, it kind of gets archived down here. So this could give you a little bit more insight, but not always. Usually it's the same thing. Completed interactive water. Utah. Yep, same thing. Alright, so that's 3.5. Then we go to 4. I think this is another long wait so when update 4 came. So on this, the diet system came into play. Fracture system and Pachycephalosaurus. So at this point they got back to introducing a new dino with the update. Is the copy listed here? Because it's on the picture. Let me see. Pachy, fractures, let your bone break, diet system. I see the Pachy, or I see the compy, but I don't see the compy listed as a feature. So that's update 4. Okay, so update 4, I remember they were split 4 and then 4.5, and then they got merged. So I don't see the compy listed here, but they definitely
Team to know.
update 4, I think.
The update everyone was excited for and now many people hate it, lol.
What do you not like about it so far? I haven't had a chance to really play it much. Okay, so I think this catches us up. We're in update 4 now. Let me see, 5 out of 5 tasks, 8 out of 8 tasks, 3 out of 3 tasks. I think I can't say it's a bad update from the outset, just looking at the gameplay that I saw online, because it's implementing new mechanics. They seem to work. They're exactly the direction that people wanted to go in. They're exactly what the team promised. I think the biggest hang-up was that how long it took, right? And I think had they included another dino with that update, it might have gone over better, but I don't know what the reservations people have for it are yet. So if you're watching and if you'd like to let me know what do you like or not like about update 4 for the Isle. And then remember, this is the one that they merged the 2 together, 4 and 4.5. Oh, by the way, let me put the other music on real quick.
Duck, duck, goose, found a pussy in a dollar
Something a little more relaxing. All right, so where we are now we're gonna see everything going forward has been updated with everything they have in mind going forward. So let's see if kind of the convention has changed, because in the past there was like a new dino almost for every update. Now my understanding is there's not that many new dinos.
Team to know. Each food spawns in a specific biome, which is great, but they're rare to find and not guaranteed to find the food you're looking for.
Gotcha. So it has become more difficult. The survival aspect of the game has become more difficult in that way, where you need to go to a certain biome to find a certain food. Oh, you know what I didn't see on these past update cards? I don't see the AI, because they did implement AI even back in 3.5, I think. There were like some overly aggressive dryos, I think I remember, but I don't see it here. I also don't see the comfy here, and I don't see the mention of the regular animals, like the pigs, the deer, all that stuff. I don't see that listed on these past cards. So food got harder to find. I gotcha. I'd say it's a little bit to be expected, but maybe that's going to take time to fine tune. Like maybe it's in the right direction, but like a step further would be like figuring out how far one should reasonably expect to have to walk to get to the next biome to find food, or a different sort of food or whatever. So I think that's probably going to take a little more time to iron out. All right, let's look at Update 5, Ancestry. Update 5 Ancestry says male and female dinosaurs will be able to establish a pair bond, okay, and build a nest and incubate eggs. So they're making this more of a process than it was back in Legacy. In Legacy, it seemed like all you had to do was just be a female, put a nest down once you're an adult, and just sit on it to incubate the eggs. Now, it requires you to pair up with another player, or possibly an AI in the future, which I think would be pretty cool, to build a nest and incubate eggs. So there's more of a process involved, which I think is a good step, because it's taking more of a step in the direction of more realism. So you get that part of the experience out of it. And then it's which you can then invite your friends to spawn onto as hatchlings. Another thing that I think might be cool is if you don't have anyone else to spawn in as the hatchlings, maybe that can be an AI. That'd be pretty cool. Probably shouldn't expect that yet, because the AI present their own challenges and stuff, and it complicates things. So probably gonna just be for players in the very beginning. But that'd be a nice goal to work towards in the far future, I guess.
Team to know. Which I don't mind working for my dino, but it's so easy to die, and diet heavy influences your growth. If you don't have a good diet, your growth time it's almost doubled.
Gotcha. So not only is food hard to find, but also you could say the experience is a bit more cumbersome, because it affects the growth time, which kind of is an important factor in this game, as well as I guess any survival game where you're that grow is a big part of the experience. How long it takes to grow something, like how reasonable it is. It's an interesting subject, because I'm pushing the bounds of that and testing how far you can go with that with what I want to do. I'm hoping to go for longer growth time with the animals that are in my game, but I understand there's a balance with that, because you can't just do it if it's not fun. You kind of have to match it. Like every hour there has to be like the gameplay loop has to be like match the size of let's say the growth time that you have in mind. So the longer the growth time takes, the more things you have to have for the player to do, or else you're just gonna get bored of it. Yeah, I think that this is, in my opinion, that kind of thing can be done right, but there aren't very many examples of people attempting it.
Think. Divided.
Hey, what's up? Divided. Okay, so on this update 5, let's see, nesting mechanic.
Team
So the whole panel.
Plus the lag and hitboxes are messed up right now, so makes it so I have no confidence fighting.
Lag and hitboxes. You know, I hear you. I have seen some gameplay where it's like, you know, there is lag. Somebody, you know, does an attack, and then 5 seconds later, it seems like it completely missed you, but it shows that it hit you. That, on first glance, does seem to be just lag. Now, it could also be hitbox is like not adjusted well for the mesh or for the model or the dinosaur. But I'm going to guess that, you know, lag by itself can account for all of that. It could be the case that both is the case, but lag can easily account for both of those instances. So it can really look like a hitbox is off when it's really just lag, if the lag is bad enough. But it could be a case of both. Yeah, that's annoying. Okay, so it does look like so over here every card was an update. Here it's one update and every card is a feature of the update. So that's the nesting mechanic, and it looks like they have tasks specifically for the mechanic of nesting. Courtship. Okay, so that whole process is going to be new, kind of like introducing diets. That's going to be a new thing. Nest building. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to go. Like, is it going to be like Valheim or something like that, where you need pieces and stuff like that? That'd be really cool. I'm doing something like that in my game. Like, for example, the secretary bird, you gotta collect twigs and stuff, and once you have like 5 twigs, you can make a nest, that kind of thing. Egg creation. So they say they have 0 of these nesting features done. This is a little bit surprising. Parent/child inheritance. I wonder if that means you inherit certain stat attributes from your parent. That'd be interesting. Hatchling nutrition. I guess since all the animals right now seem to have nutrition attributes and stuff, maybe this means that there is you have certain attributes as a hatchling, and then once you become bigger to like juvie and then subadult and stuff like that, it will change potentially from 2 different systems. It could also mean that they just have an empty slot for hatchling nutrition and they just have to fill it in. Or this could just mean that they just have to create the slot for hatchling and it will apply to any dino that has the hatchling stage. Whereas dinos that don't have the hatchling stage, maybe Hypsilophodon doesn't get the
I'll
baby.
always takes a while, so I'm not surprised, lol.
Yeah, they're setting a precedent for themselves. That might not be a bad thing, because now if the bar is set low, they can impress you very easily. Hatchling nutrition. So it could also be like if Hypsilophodon only has 1 stage still, the hatchling thing won't apply. But because they don't have any hatchlings, maybe they just never created the variable for hatchling nutrition, and now they are. So that seems like it would be a pretty easy task, depending on the system they have in place. Nest invites. Probably just carry over what happened in the Isle, I would imagine, with the with respect to the new way that you do it, where you press the button and then you gotta hold it, I guess. Quality assurance. So these are the features to work on, and then functionality testing. So they're kind of giving an overview of how quality assurance work. Functionality testing, basically, we map the button to Q. When you press Q, does it work? Cool. Does it interfere with anything else? Cool. Ad hoc testing, play testing, balance testing. So I'm not really sure exactly what they put in each one of these categories, but at this point they're playing the game here. So they're moving around in the world and everything and actually seeing if it's enjoyable. And then balance testing would be, is it fair? So the new changes, the new system, does it currently affect the game before this update is applied in a negative way once this new thing is applied? I guess that's taken into account at that point. Activity. Let's see. The Isle moved this card from update 7, nesting / dimorphism, to update 5, ancestry. So this got moved up to an earlier, to be sooner. Now, one thing I'm also noticing is dimorphism. It used to be in a card called dimorphism. Let's take a look at 7 again. Lifetime. It doesn't seem like there's a dimorphism. And it doesn't seem like 7 has anything else to do with nesting. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be interested in that. Where am I? Here. So yeah, it looks like dimorphism might have gotten lost in the shuffle here. Now, is it possible that they still have that? Let me think. Let me see. I don't see that dimorphism on the task here. Oh, well, these are nesting features. Maybe I haven't gotten to it yet. But anyway, this is just noting that it came from an old card that had the name dimorphism on it. And that was a part of the Hope trailer. So they deleted the screenshot. 1. Let's see, added nesting features to this card. Kissing can move the card from update 3 to update number 4. Move this card from 3 to 4. So this card got moved later, and then features from a later update that was planned to be later got moved up onto this card. 2 to 3. Well, I guess they're just moving some things around for visual purposes here. Attach screenshot, and then added card update. Okay. So that's nesting. Let's see, skin system. Let's see, customize your dinosaur with a different pattern and skin. The skin system will be an improvement over the legacy version of the with more nuance, clarity, and options. Interesting. Oh, before I get started on that again, just again to note, some of the noteworthy things about this were the dimorphism is not mentioned here. And I see 0. It's a 0 task complete. So maybe they hadn't really gotten a chance to start on this update yet. I'm a little surprised about that. Let's see. Skin system, continuing on here. So
to know. I'm excited for the skins.
I am too, honestly. That will do a lot, actually. You know, this was, I felt like in the old days, like for an update that didn't have a dino, if this was one of those back then, you can get away with that with skin updates, because it's like you can make it feel like you have something different if you can have the ability to customize a little bit and look a little different from other dinos. So the skin system would be really cool for that. I hope there's a little bit more that goes along with that, such as maybe a little bit of variable size difference, you know what I mean? Since we know there's going to be perks and differences in nutrition between species, perhaps that can be the case within species as well. So maybe if your dino is a little faster, it can be a little smaller and skinnier, but faster, so there's benefits. Maybe they can implement that, and that will help to improve this. Now, that's a completely separate thing that doesn't have to be a part of this. I feel like it would enhance this, to be honest. And I only bring it up because I feel like that's kind of easy to do. Anyways, activity on this card shows move this card from update 8. So this was far in the future, and this got moved up, okay? To go along with nesting. And update 5. Let's see, copy this card from skin system. Let me see if I can click on that. Yeah, it's gone. So this was copied from the old skin card, system card. So they originally planned to do this far in the future. I wonder why. I guess it wouldn't have been needed as soon as it is now, because on the old roadmap, there were more dinos on these updates leading up to number 8. Here, I feel like this is a little bit of a compromise because there are less dinos. You can move this up. So this is actually quite of a. Yeah, this move makes sense if they did it for that purpose. I think it will carry it along a little bit with no dinos if there's a focus more on mechanics, because you can make it feel like you're getting something new. So that's the skin system. I'm not noticing anything out of the ordinary here. When I think back to the legacy color system, I'm not someone who really cared too much about the colors, so I guess I didn't really get into how different things can look. But I mean, you saw some reasonable colors. I also, from time to time, would see some animals that did not look realistically right, but it wasn't like Beasts of Bermuda, you know what I mean, like neon dinos running around. I just saw, the vanilla velociraptors or T-Rex or whatever that didn't really look albino, but they kind of looked like cream or whatever. So that a little bit annoyed me. I would like to see them not do that this time. I'm not saying like they don't have to, obey the scientific fact that, hey, there are albinos and melanistic mutations in animals and stuff, even reptiles. But, I wouldn't mind if they left certain things out. So the way that they say it's going to be different is the skin system will be an improvement on legacy version with more nuance. That I can only take to mean just details in different areas. Like you can do the claws a little bit more, or you can do the eye color or something like that. Clarity. I guess that. I mean, that could really just be.
I wish there was a few more dinos getting added.
Same. Clarity could just mean literally that the Everima dinos look better than the old dinos, and that's clarity. Like that doesn't have to be much work in that. That just kind of is what it is when they upgraded. And then options, I feel like that's the same thing as nuance, to be honest. So I don't feel like there's much difference here from the old thing. Just maybe a different choice of where you can put your colors and maybe a few different patterns, but I don't know what they could do to the system to really make it much different. And when I look at the tasks, there are like really no task listed here. So maybe this will get done quick because maybe they can carry over a lot of the functionality from the old system. Let's see here. Is this a card? Okay, here we go. Oh, wait, so this is split 5, and this here says update 5.5. Oh shit. Improve day-night cycle plus night vision. This is an interesting subject. In my game, I was working to get a really good looking night vision, and I got
I'm sick of seeing Carnotaurus.
I'm also sick of seeing Carnotaurus. I want a new carnivore. I think the old update 5 had a Ceratosaurus in it, because I think Ceratosaurus was in the one with diets before. I'll have to check that in a second, but we're supposed to get another carnivore on the old timeline. But yeah, so on theirs they say, but what I was gonna say was, I wanted night vision, but now I'm considering like completely leaving it out for animals that don't have really, really good night vision, like owls, because I think the nighttime with moonlight looks really, really fucking good. I'm also considering doing like automatic night vision and stuff like that, and from what I heard, I think that they were also considering it for the Isle as well. So it's interesting. I'm interested to see what choice they'll make. So not really much info on this thing. I think maybe this is just the border between where 5.0 and 5.5 ends. There's really maybe not meant to be anything here. It's just copied from improved daylight. Yeah, looks like they just moved that over. Oh wait, hang on. This might be important. Copied this card from update 5.5 and list. Oh, well, I don't know what that may not mean anything actually. All right, so here it is. Here's the card for day-night. All right, so implementing day-night cycle.
I like the night vision in your game.
Thank you. It's actually only half done. It actually will look better, but I may drop it altogether. We'll see. You have to be willing to destroy your work if you want to achieve anything truly, truly good. You can't fall too much in love with it. But yeah, thank you. If you like that, it'll look even better. Implementing day-night cycle into Everima. So they already have it. So let's see what they mean by implementing it. Alongside revamped night vision. It seems like they're just going to add night vision. The only thing about the day-night cycle that currently exists before this is implemented that I could tell from stuff that I've seen is the times seem out of whack. Like, it seemed like whenever I was watching somebody like Simo or somebody play, they were like, the whole damn stream was night, or like the whole stream was day. It would change, but it seemed like it would take an enormous amount of time. Like, it would be like 2-hour cycles or whatever. I don't know what's right for this game, because they're adjusting the experience with the amount of mechanics and environment that's going into it. But I kind of tend to favor 1 hour and 1 hour. I think 50-50 makes sense. And then I think 1 hour and 1 hour is reasonable. Depending on things, it's reasonable. Currently, the way I approach it in my thing is there's not a lot to do at night, and it doesn't really add to the gameplay. It does just inhibit things a little bit.
Team to know.
So my split
Nighttime
is,
lighting will probably be changed to be darker.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my split is 45-15, because I feel like that's how much more of a game you get in daylight versus night. There's just not as much game at night, so I have to cut it down. That's the same approach that I would take to deciding growth times. I can't make the time longer than the gameplay loop has enough stuff to play to allow. So we'll see. They don't really say anything about how long the day is going to be. They just say implement it alongside revamped night vision. So if there's going to be a change, I would think it's going to be the length. Other than that, I wonder how day could change, or how night could change. So I think it probably actually night would be like what you said. They'll make it darker, because when you have it darker, now you can turn on the night vision and give some animals an advantage and some not. With a focus on keeping nighttime intimidating but also interesting and engaging to play. That's an interesting statement to make, because I remember when I first started playing Legacy, before it was called Legacy, I avoided night. It just felt like it just did not feel very fun. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to just be looking at pitch black with like a little small black and white radius for so long. Like, I thought the night vision was cool. It makes sense. You know, it just wasn't as fun as day, so I didn't feel like it deserved to be as long as the daytime. So what I did was what a lot of people did. I used reshade. I brightened up my night, which not only let me see more, but it gave me an advantage over players who were like, basically the only other dino who could see at night was like Dilophosaurus. So a lot of people did that, and I think it's completely fine, honestly. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it's a little bit cheating, but it's like, so what? The game is, I mean, the only other option, I'm gonna log out. Like, it's just not, yeah. I didn't have a problem with the difficulty. The difficulty's fine though. Let's see here. Root access GIF. Oh, I guess that's just that cool video there. Now, how to make nighttime engaging. Now, I understand what they mean about intimidating, you know, creating an atmosphere. Just having it darker may not make it that intimidating. It may make it a little frustrating for people. But I don't know. I guess it's also going to just depend on the style and the look of the night vision. That's one thing that I learned when I was setting up my night vision, is the teal of the green and the blues makes, you know, affects kind of like the mood or the atmosphere, in the same way that, like, if you're working on a film, your cold colors, like your blues and stuff like that, elicit one mood to the viewer, and then your warmer colors elicit another mood. So it's kind of like you want to align that with like the mood of what you're doing in the scene and what's happening. Like, if somebody dies, a lot of times in movies you get colder colors, you get darker scenes, and when things are happy you get brighter colors, warmer colors, things like that. So if you're going to make the nighttime more intimidating, I would think, number one, you're going to make it darker. Yeah, that makes the night vision work.
Palmy scene think.
Number two, you're going to affect the colors, and I will say, the current night vision, I like the color. I honestly like the color. If there was no night vision, I like the color the way it is. The color of the fall
Team to know.
Makes sense.
Unless the night vision is more like Dodd.
Dang, I don't know that reference. Oh, wait. Day of Dragons. I haven't seen that night vision. Yeah, if I don't, is that black and white? If Day of Dragons black and white night vision? Because that would be bland, right? You don't want to do black and white. That's not intimidating. That's just kind of more difficult, you know? So I would think they're going to add some color to it. They're probably going to affect like the way that the night vision goes out, and then like maybe have it glow so that if something approaches you, the eyes glow, or actually there's a lot of stuff you can do with night to change the way that the game works for the player. You can make sounds travel differently at night versus during the day. I'm not saying that this is scientifically accurate or anything. I'm just saying it could be effective if you want to create an atmosphere. Like in Resident Evil, sound travels a certain way. It's done to make it feel and look creepy. You can have it to where those settings turn on at night, and then on at day it feels a little bit more like, a wildlife documentary or whatever. But yeah, that's the thing. If they're wanting to be more intimidating, they're gonna have to punch up certain aspects of it. So I think darkening, picking a certain color, and then how light is going to get to the player is going to be very important. This will be something I would really dig into. Actually, it's something I really did dig into for my game, because I come from a filmmaking background, and that's a lot of that is lighting. And you do so much. You communicate so much with light, how you use it, how big the light is, what color the light is, where the light appears on the screen, and how it gets back to the camera. There's so much that you can do if you want to communicate something through the night and through how light is reaching the player. Let's see, the activity on the card says move this card from update 6. So they did move this up to update 5, Night Terrors. Okay, now the reference to Night Terrors are, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there supposed to be a Trudon in Night Terrors? Let me see if there's still a Night Terrors real quick. No. So there is no Night Terrors, but it looks like Trudon is in the next one, and then is in the Gore. You know what was in Night Terrors? Dilophosaurus, now that I'm thinking about it. So there's another dino that got lost on an update like this. Okay. Copy this card also from Day Night and list update Night Terror. So both of these came from, move this card from 6 Night Terrors. Both of these cards came from Night Terrors. So we don't get Dilophosaurus. So the first question is, number 1, why? Why not Dilophosaurus with this update? The most simple answer is probably the most likely, Occam's razor, which my instinct would be in any creative endeavor.
Night vision was supposed to come with Trudon and Dillo.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So Trudon and Dillo. And from the outset, that makes sense when you're introducing night vision or nighttime to Infirima that didn't have it at the time as a new feature. It just makes sense to put those dinos with it. Now, my instinct on why the dinos are not in that update now is the first instinct that happens with business, that happens with any creative project that people usually take on. Usually, people tend to have too big of a scope from the beginning. In other words, they start off complicated, and what happens in any project is it always gets more complicated. Always. I always assumed that when I was doing film and stuff. So whenever we were writing original content or whatever, I would always be one of the folks that are like, all right, let's start really, really simple. Make the world super small. Make the story super simple, because on its own, as we go, it's going to get more complicated. It always does. I've never been in a project that has gotten simpler. You know what I mean? Like, it started off complicated and then got simpler. It always gets more complicated. So they've had to adjust this roadmap, and it seems to me the pattern is each and every time there's fewer things in the pipeline. in other words, fewer dinos. So maybe their scope is adjusting to, you know, how fast they can get things done. Maybe this would take a lot longer if they had to do Dillo as well, because they can't just carry over Dillo from Legacy, which I actually think is okay. They actually have to follow the convention of giving it a new combat ability that's unique from others and things like that. They've kind of set a precedent for themselves that you guys would expect. Otherwise, if they just bring the Dillo in, people would appreciate it because people are starving for dinos right now, but also to be the critics. And often the critics are the loudest ones in the room, even if there's like only one or two critics. You know, that annoys creators. It does. But yeah, I think that it's just they want to make this simple, and if you have to choose what's the more important task between adding a creature, which is something they have a more experience with implementing a new mechanic that they haven't put in Legacy, and it hasn't been in Evrima, it's probably the mechanic that's more important, because they know they can add dinos, but the new mechanics are what's being tested out now to figure out if this is going to work and if it's going to contribute to the experience of Evrima going forward. So it makes sense from that level that the
Team to know.
the goals would
At
scale
least
down.
we get Trudon, which is my favorite so far.
True. You are still getting the Trudon, but it's just in a later update now. Now the second theory of why there's less dinos here is I recall on somebody's stream they mentioned the developers saying something like kind of like what it sounded like was like almost the vision from the developer's point of view of Evrima was changing a little bit. Like it almost sounded like Evrima is not the Isle, it's just another piece of the Isle from what they were saying. I haven't actually dug this up to find where this came from or whatever. I just kind of remember it, and I just remember taking it as how they were saying it, because people are more informed than me on that. But it sounded like they were almost saying, and it, from what I understand, this is like the developer saying like Evrima or the Isle Legacy wasn't the Isle, and Evrima isn't really the Isle either, but it's like a new experience of the Isle, and it's working towards what the Isle will be. So if that's true, from that point on, what they're saying is the dinos are actually never going to all fill out in Evrima, if that's true, because this is going to be a limited experience. This is going to be more focused on, and from this point I'm extrapolating, but if that's true, what I'm assuming is they're sticking with these smaller dinos, and it may be the case that the bigger ones never make it into Evrima because there might be a different version of the Isle that is going to have the bigger dinos in it, if that's true. I could be off base, but that would explain why there are less dinos now, and it also would explain why the focus is on the smaller ones, you know. And you know, in the beginning they did say that they wanted to start with the smaller ones, but you at least saw Ceratosaurus like on the roadmap back then. You saw the bigger ones, but it could be the case that Evrima is going to be like a limited experience. Like it's not going to have the full roster. It could be the case. Maybe it is. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I'm basing that second theory on why there's less dinos basically just on that thing that I heard from then, and I don't even think I might be remembering it totally correctly. But it's just coming to my head now. Okay. Update 6. Gore. Let's take a look at Gore. Let's see. Our Gore features will include all the blood, viscera, intestines, and horror you can stomach, or not, depending on your constitution. It's okay to look away. You know, before I read this, you know what else is coming to mind? Some of the other smaller creatures that I'm not seeing now, but I remember in the beginning. Wasn't there supposed to be more? There was supposed to be like Avasaurus, right? Avas. And they fit into the category of I will headbutt you, the tree, and my friend, or something like that. That was like the thing. It was going to be in the group of dinos with Pachycephalosaurus, the Ava, the Pachy, and from what I remember, maybe something else, maybe the Trike. But that would be another dino that kind of got left behind somehow. I'm having a hard time remembering the first roadmap. But anyways.
Team to know. I don't like gore.
Don't like gore. Well, man, they're gonna try to get gory. I wonder now, why is there gonna be gore? Well, number one, it was a function of Legacy to be a food source, but like they do have the meat, the flesh chunks here. And remember the what I thought was a little bit important is they called it flesh chunks instead of meat chunks. That's a direct reference to Path of Titans, and I was pointing out they may be doing that in a naming it competitively to differentiate. But if you care about that, does it make sense to do gore, on its own constitution? You know what I mean? Like, what exactly is gore going to be other than just another form of flesh eating, meat chunks and stuff? It looks like not much. It's just going to be, it looks like it's probably going to serve the same function as Legacy. Probably have a few more things that go into it, like certain animals can eat it, certain can't, but that was the case in Legacy as well. Maybe there's going to be like a time-based factor where it's not considered gore until a certain amount of time has gone by, or it's not considered gore until it's starting to rot and stuff, and then you can have certain animals eat it or not eat it. That could be the case. So activity on this card says they moved the card from update 7, nesting and dimorphism, to update 6. So this one got moved up in time. Let's see here. They also moved this card from update 5, ancestry, to update 7. And so it got moved up, and then it got moved, well, hang on, 7 to 6. 5 to 7. Alright, so it did move around a little bit. So it got moved up, and then it got moved forward. And then the last thing, it says copy this card from Gore. And the list update diets. This would have made sense to be with diets, right? It would have made sense to do this at the same time as you're doing diets. I wonder why it wasn't done with diets. It could be the case that including this with diets at the time that diets was coming out would have brought along with it a feeling of incompleteness. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, it took so long to get that update out. You got Pachycephalosaurus, which is good, a new dino. But if you included Gore, I think people might have realized, oh wait, wasn't Ceratosaurus supposed to come with Gore? Weren't we supposed to get some other stuff with Gore? And maybe it would have started a conversation too soon that they weren't ready to have
According
yet.
to the devs, the gore has a purpose. It's not just gore to be gore.
Oh, it's not just gore to be gore. Oh, that's good. I would imagine it has to do with affecting status of the dinos, status effects, like kind of like when you overeat and you get a health debuff or whatever. If you eat gore when you're not really a gore-eating dino, it might be a health debuff, so I would imagine that would be the first use. I would love to see them overdo that, like to go above and beyond when it comes to what it actually can be used for. But off the top of my head, in the beginning, I don't know what else they're going to be using gore for.
Alan G.
Interacting it with Sam.
They said that with gore, carnivores would be able to eat intestines or other organs.
Well, that just sounds like eating gore, but you could break that down. Like, so what you might be saying there is certain carnivores can eat like certain parts of the gore. So like if there's a kidney laying around, you can eat that. But if there's not a kidney, like there's only a liver, you can't really eat that. Okay, sounds like an extension of the diet system into gore. That sounds cool. So think about this. Preferred diets, right? Preferred body parts. So if you're the carnivore, if you're eating your preferred body
Alan
part,
G.
it gives you more
Yeah.
nutrition. How's it going, Alan G? Welcome. So it gives you more nutrition if that's the case. So that'd be kind of cool. You guys remember that thing about, I'm saying this like I watched it with you guys, but like orcas, the killer whales, how they will kill sharks because they are freaking apex predators. They will kill sharks and eat the liver and leave everything else. It might be a situation like that, where if you eat the thing that your dino likes the most, you get the most out of it. So it may actually be the case that it's not just about your preferred food type, then it becomes the preferred part of the food. That would be really cool. Getting more in depth and more in detail with the nutrition and stuff. But if that brings headaches along with it, like, oh, I'm trying to eat the kidney, but it's like making me eat the liver, and oh, there's bugs with this, and lag is affecting it. Hopefully that's not the case. So I don't think that will be the case, because you could probably have like a little pop-up menu come up, and like you can select eat the kidney or eat whatever it is, and that would kind of solve that. That doesn't seem like it'd be too difficult. Let's see here. What else? Dimorphism. The fact that this came from nesting and dimorphism, or maybe it was just in that lane. Let me see if I can still click gore. Nope. That's gone. Well, if there's more to it than that, they didn't really put it on the thing here. Let's see. So we go from gore to, so that's going to be the entire first half of update 6 is the entire gore thing. So maybe there is going to be a little more to that than
Alan G. Yeah, orcas can afford that luxury, you could say. Oh.
Yeah. They're surprisingly effective hunters in the water, and intelligent and just terrifying when you think about what they can do. Venom and poison is going to be 6.5. So the second half of the update, the gore update, is going to be venom and poison. Let's see what they have in store for this, because I'm implementing this for like venomous snakes and stuff and scorpions. So they say our full swing implementation of all things toxic. Okay. This feature is dripping with stomach turning. Well, they're using some lurid language here. The feature is dripping with stomach turning, damage dealing, mind altering nastiness. Now, if I take each part of that to mean something differently, I'm most familiar with the stomach turning, like the animal's overeating and then throwing up. So maybe you get bit or get poisoned and then you start throwing up, and it debuffs you every like 15 minutes or something. The second part is damage dealing. Okay, well, that may just be raw neurotoxic damage. Mind altering. Now I remember that somebody was saying like it'll look like you're like tripping balls or whatever if you get spit on or something. I remember somebody saying something like that for Trudon. So it could be the case that there's different dinos that have different types of venom and poison. Oh, well, first of all, I guess the scientific breakdown of what is venom versus poison. Venom is poison that serves a function, as far as I understand. Like a snake biting something to kill it with venom makes it venom and not poison. Whereas a animal that's getting bitten, so like a poison dart frog, is poisonous but not venomous. So they don't use their poison to hunt anything or kill anything. It's just meant to be a deterrent for other things to kill them.
Team to know. Well, that kinda sucks. I thought it was supposed to be Trudon's main way to attack and kill.
It could still be. That still could be the case. But yeah, an example of a poisonous dino might be the Maggie. I think they were saying like the Maggie would be like toxic for dinos to eat, or it tastes bad or something like that. They don't seem to be talking about taste in this thing, unless you want to take the stomach turning part to mean taste. Like you eat something and your dino doesn't like it, so you throw up. That could be the case. If that is the case, it would have made sense to have Maggie in this update. We recommend. All right, so they also say we recommend you choose your food wisely. Oh, okay. So they're gonna make you like find out what you should be eating and what you shouldn't. You know, so those little hints in the character menu right now that tell you what the animal eats and what they don't. What if they take that away and make you like find out through trial and error? It'd be kind of interesting, right? Choose your food wisely and huddle together when night falls for your own good. It's interesting that they mention the night thing in the card where they're talking about venom and poison, because that's a reference back to night terrors, like the day-night cycle, Trudon, and all that. It could just be that this is just carryover information from when it was all together in one card, that Trudon, Venom, and Night were all together, if that's the case. I don't remember if they were all together. Let me see. The activity on this card says this card was copied from Venom and Poison, so that's consistent in the list. Night Terrors. So, okay, so this was a part of Night Terrors. So maybe they mentioned that in the past and they just never updated this. Now this seems like a separate thing. Wait, let me double check. Am I in 5? No, yeah, Night Terrors. No, that's 6.5. That's right. Okay, so let me get to the second part. I have a third theory on dinos, like not being on the roadmap now. That might be good news for you guys, or for us. Trudon. This nimble critter.
But sucks that it might not come with Trudon when it releases, so Trudon will just be a weaker Utah Raptor.
I would be willing to bet that Trudon, whatever Trudon's ability is, it's going to get it.
Alan G.
On its
Maybe
release.
they'll make new food that is poisonous, like different plants or mushrooms.
They wouldn't have to do that. They could actually just make the ones that you eat now have effects. Like I know, like they have the agave and the coconut for some animals. They already have those separate food sources, so they could just have a reaction to the ones that you already have. Or they could come up with new, and they could also do both at the same time. This nimble critter will not, while not particularly dangerous on its own, can become quite problematic for a wide variety of creatures when operating in a coordinated group through the use of their venomous bite. So these guys have venom, and it's a bite. So this won't be spitting. Keep your wits about you. Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. This creature is known to mimic certain noises. Okay, so I remember that being mentioned before. Like this animal would be able to mimic the sound of either other dinos or other creatures. You know what I mean? If it's other dinos, I'm not totally in love with that idea, because I don't like the idea of a small creature like that, like say mimicking the sound of a T-Rex or mimicking the sound of something that it doesn't have really the size and vocal capacity to mimic. I don't like that. But if it does something like mimic the sound of something you might want to hunt, like a frog, like if this thing, like if you're in the middle of the night and you're like getting ready to get hungry and you need to look around for something and you start to hear a frog croak, 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 or kettle, 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 whatever they sound like wherever country you're from, if it can do that, and then you go off looking for a frog and this thing comes out of nowhere and attack you, and you're like, where's the frog, and it was this thing the whole time, that would be kind of cool and creepy at the same time. Now this is what I would call not a jump scare, not horror by jump scaring you. This is a horrific concept in and of itself. What makes it scary is just the idea that it can mimic something that you don't perceive to be danger and then turn into something that is dangerous once you find it or it finds you. Now that, I think, should be in Night Terrors for that purpose, because that actually is a horror idea there. I wonder, oh wait, they got calls here. I wonder what creatures they would be able to mimic. That's going to be the real interesting thing. And I think that's going to impact the way that you play that creature a lot. It does sound haunting. So these are not mimicking sounds. These are just its own natural sounds.
Team to know. Maybe it can only mimic young dinos.
That would make a lot of sense. I like that idea. You know, it would actually be a really cool thing to implement with that if you go that direction too. Like, what if you learn the sounds as you encounter the animals? Like, you maybe start off with just your sound, but when you encounter a frog and you eat the frog, maybe you now learn how to mimic the frog. So maybe you have to listen to the frog before you kill it, and then you gain the frog. You can parrot it now from that point on. That would be really cool. Okay. It does sound really, really freaking scary. That one where it goes. That right there.
Teen to know. Trudon sounds are so good.
Yeah, I really am digging the Trudon. I love the sounds. Let's see, concept art here. Let's see if they got any clues here. Looks like it stands up. That might be a sniff around animation. This looks like a crouching. This looks like a call. This looks like just an idle moving around, sort of the way the Utah does right now. Here is a Utah eating a carcass, and then a Trudon sneaking up behind it, which suggests that it is going to be like either a scavenger because it's waiting for the Utah to leave, or a competitor. It'd be interesting if it can compete with Utah. I imagine that'd be like a nightmare, because it's hard to hit Utahs in the game a lot of the time, so it's like having something even smaller and faster, picking you to death. And then these little guys are eating carcasses too, so it looks like these two are going to be competing for carcasses based on this. And then when we look here at the Trudon, or Tenanto, two are attacking this Tenanto, one's grabbing the leg. It'd be really cool to see a bite and hold mechanic, like a latch on. I think they should be able to pounce too. That would make a lot of sense. And it looks like biting has affected the Tenanto, so it looks like they're showing the effects of the venom affecting the prey. When it comes to implementing all this stuff, I'll just talk about the venom. The venom is relatively easy to do because you're talking about damage, the same way if you bite something, you apply damage. If you're doing that with venom, then that just basically would apply over time, like with a timer or something like that. The only interesting part would be how much time it is. So whether that's a fixed amount, whether it correlates to how adult you are, like how much venom you can inject, whether you have control over that, as well as like the animal that you're fighting's resistance to that venom. There's a lot of nuance that can go into that mechanic. Beyond that, I'm not sure how interesting it can be. Like, I would wonder if it's going to be a raw damage attack, or if it has other things combined, that if you inject enough venom, not only is it damaging, it takes your stamina, it starts to make the animal hallucinate. That'd be kind of cool to see. Alright, let's look at the task. Alright, now this is interesting. They have 100% of the model done. The high poly and base mesh are done. That just means they have two versions of it. So to save memory, they have like a lower quality mesh and then a high quality mesh that appears when you get close. It's like LODs, level of details, applied to meshes. Textures, let's see, they're halfway done. So they have default skin M, default skin M normal. I would take the M to be male, and then there's default skin F, I would take that to be female. Default skin F normal. I'm not sure what the normal would be. Rig. Let's see. That's what it needs to move around. The rig is done. Basic rig. So basic modes of movement. So walking. I wouldn't expect this to really have swimming or climbing locomotion. I would expect to just be able to do what Utah can do right now. Morph. I'm gonna assume that has to do with its growth. In my own game, I have not cracked the puzzle of like having the mesh morph from like cradle baby all the way up to adult slowly like they have in this game. That's something I'm still looking into. I have a seamless growth, but it doesn't look as good as Everima. So I'm gonna assume that's what they mean by morph. Animations. Like, I'm assuming they mean morph targets. Animations. Look, pose. Okay, this is interesting. They have 82% of their animations done. So they consider 82% of the animations done to be, they have look poses. They have idle. They have locomotion. That would be your walking, your running. They have calls. They have eating, drinking, sniffing, wallowing, resting, sleeping. These are all functional. They also have hit reaction, okay, status effects, so broken leg, poison, dragged. I'm not familiar with that. That's interesting. That's a new one for me. The closest thing I can think of drag in the game right now is if you get snatched by a Deinosuchus and dragged into the water. From what I understand right now, it's just basically the dinosaur is just motionless while you're being dragged. So it'd be cool if they actually have it to where it's like, depending on what grabs you, you kind of are bending the way that it's grabbing you. Carried. So they differentiate dragged from carried. So I would consider one to be friendly and one to be offensive. So you get dragged by a Deinosuchus or something else that can grab you. You get carried by, say, like an adult. Maybe like in Beast of Bermuda, how you can pick up other players. Swallowed, death/swallowed. So we've seen that. That's like a one-hit kill by Carnotaurus. Has a Dryo in the mouth automatically. Now the ones that they left out here that's not done yet is nest and attack special abilities. That makes sense. I don't think we've seen poisoning. The nesting makes sense because on the nesting thing, it had 0% of the task done. The attack thing is interesting because I thought that it said venomous bite, which, let me see here, didn't it say it
Team to know.
Attacking?
Think it means body dragging.
Attacks ability. So, okay, they didn't mention attacks before, so maybe they just didn't have that yet. So you think it means body dragging? Dragged? You don't necessarily need to animate dragged if the Troodon itself is being dragged. Usually you can kind of just make it a ragdoll, just kind of limp, and just make it latch on to a certain part of the ragdoll and just pull it. So that's not necessarily hard to do. If it's talking about it dragging something, that makes sense, but then I don't know why they call it dragged instead of dragging. See how wallowing is here, drinking. Usually you follow that kind of name convention when you're doing animations, just because you're gonna have a version of each for every dino, and you may have different people working on it. Maybe they only have one person working on this. Maybe that's just the way they do it. But it's probably good practice to have a name convention that you always stick to. Because then you can hand it off to somebody else and just be like, hey, follow this template. Sounds. Let's see. Generic sounds. Broadcast, threaten, danger, attract. All right, so the first four I'm familiar with, 1 through 4 call. And then the last one I think would be like the courtship thing. They have 100% of that done. Not surprising. They've been showing off Troodon for a while now. And a lot of the stuff that people have liked have been the sounds, so not surprised that that's done. Mechanics. Locomotion. 0. Well, they certainly have that because I've seen the thing running
Team to
around.
know. Like Kerno can't carry another Kerno the same size, but it can drag it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. Mechanics. Locomotion. That's walking, running. The only other thing that I think probably they would want to add is like a pounce. Stat regen. I would be surprised if that doesn't work the way that the other dinos work. I'd be surprised if they were using a separate system for each dino. The only thing that I would think that they would be doing is adjusting the stat regen stat. Like, I would assume this dino already has a stat slot and they just have to put a value in to say how fast it or slowly it regens. I would assume that that's why that's here. Otherwise, it's like, why would you not have it regenerating yet? Basic combat. Other than just attack and, you know, get hit by things, I wonder what they're thinking about in terms of like what they feel like they have to do for it to have basic combat. Other than attack, if it's gonna do more than bite, your basic attack would be bite, and maybe pounce if they decide to do that. I wonder what else they have in mind. But this could just be checked off as soon as they have the animation, so maybe that correlates directly. In fact, that's probably more likely. Simpler thing is probably more likely. Special ability. As a mechanic, I would think that that's built into your attack, so you don't have to adjust anything. But perhaps it's the case that you can choose what you want to mimic. So maybe they're considering the ability to mimic the special ability, because you can do that at will. It'd be really cool if you can select what you want to mimic at what time. Like, it doesn't have to be a system where whatever's the last thing you heard will be the sound that you're on right now. And maybe you have just like a carousel of 3 sounds that you can kind of choose. I'm going to sound like the frog right now, or I'm going to sound like the baby raptor right now.
I think alt bite is in that category.
Alt bite. Oh yeah, there is an alt bite. Okay. Well, that'd be kind of cool. Let's see here. Scent. Same difference. I think that mechanic should already be working. Otherwise, I wonder how the scent mechanic would differ from the Utah's scent mechanic. I mean, other than adjusting that, you know, you can smell your own kind. I wonder if there is anything specially intended to do with that. Vocals. That's just basically just mapping it to the keys. Wallow. Yeah, I think we're just looking at mapping and just making sure that each stat has a value in place. Wallow. Rest, sleep, ragdoll. I'm not going to assume that they haven't actually programmed this stuff for the dino. I think that it already is. They just have to fine-tune it. Ragdoll status effect. Okay, so what I'm looking at as far as mechanics of this dino, very, very traditional with what everything that's come so far. Like, everything has scent so far. Everything has voice calls. Wallow, rest, ragdoll. So there's nothing really different about how this dino is going to work as opposed to other dinos, except for status effects. Maybe it's not affected by venom versus the other dinos are. So the mechanics look like it's going to play basically like
Team to know. Each dino might have a different range maybe.
If this dino could climb, I would expect that there would be something here indicating that they have a task that is specifically for that. And I don't see anything other than locomotion, which would indicate like climbing, other than special ability if they want to consider that. But I would probably think they would have a different naming convention for like a climbing ability. So instead of combat, basic combat, they would have like a basic survival ability or something like that. And that would be its survival ability. It's the ability to climb. Quality assurance is going to follow the same convention. Functionality testing first, ad hoc testing, play testing, and then balance testing. There's been a lot of activity on this card. Let's see. Kissing Kitten completed status effects on this card. Locomotion. Trudon calls. So this is her adding all of those points here. Let me see if anything changed from anything. Dragged. Morph. All of this is expected. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Hypno. Or Hype. Yeah, Hypno. That's a person. I don't know why I was thinking it was a dinosaur at first. I was like, what the fuck is a Hypno? That sounds like a Pokemon. Attach Trudon concept art. Completed Sniff, Eating, Idle. These are her adding them to the card. Then somebody on the main account put in Default Skin, Bone Mesh, High Poly.
Team to know. I don't think Trudon can climb, that's Herrera's job.
Right, yeah. Probably right. I think I would see it here if it had the ability to climb. So this looks like it's going to play a lot like Utah. So you won't have much of a difference in its gameplay here. Let's see, Improved Night. So is that everything? Oh, here we're on 6. Okay, that's 6. Alright, so let me, before I go to 7, mention my third theory as to why there may be less dinos on the roadmap and why this actually might be a good sign. It could be the case that dinos are hidden. In other words, they're planning to release dinos without telling people. It could be the case. There are just certain indications that I saw. Let me see. Was it here? Where is it? Where is it? If there was a hidden dino in this update, I would say it's Ceratosaurus because it would go with gore. It just seems like if, other than people expecting Cerato to come with gore, I don't see another reason why not to put it with the diets when they were doing the diets, because this has to do with diets. It could also just be that this is just going to be an extension of the diets to where it's the dietary needs of the thing that you're eating. So in other words, your preferred part of the food. So just the next level of diet. It could just be that they consider that to be more complicated and they want to test it, and that's why it's moved over. But there also could be the possibility.
Team to know.
That
still waiting for playable compy LOL.
It could also be the case that they might give us a secret dino. That might just be wishful thinking, and actually I'll admit that that's less likely. But it is possible. But it wouldn't that be cool, like to get an update and you think that you're only getting Trudon, but you also, surprise, you get Ceratosaurus, and that's a surprise. Now, the first question would be, why would they do that? If they do decide to do that, which I think it would be very much welcome, because I think the more dinos, the better. Why would they do that? I mean, a wild guess would be that it's for strategic purposes. And one would like to assume or think that that's not holding back this team or their development, like the consideration of how they're competing against other games. But I think there are things that they do have to take into account. Like they did call their flesh system flesh chunks instead of meat chunks, and if they weren't paying attention at all to Path of Titans, one might think that meat chunks would be the first thing that comes to mind, but I mean, maybe I'm just reaching there. But now, if it is for strategic purposes, why would they feel the need to do this? In other words, this is kind of a drastic move to take more dinos off your dino map when the game is mostly it's about dinos and that's the main appeal. Like, say what you want about how superior Everima is to Legacy, it is, mechanically speaking. A lot of people still play Legacy. The reason is the variety of dinos. It doesn't have to look like the best game. It's just there's so much value in that one feature where you have a lot of dinos to choose from and skins and nesting that people will go with a game that is mechanically inferior because it has more dinos. It's a dino game. So for them to do that, I would think that the only thing that would push them to do that is competition. And the reason that they might have done that would be, remember when they announced, or maybe not announced, but hinted that somebody was working on the what was the big thing that they were working on? The big bird thing, Dinokairos. Remember they hinted at Dondi hinted at somebody was working on might have been working on Dinokairos. It was like, hey, what you working on? Dinokairos, something like that, something along those lines. And what happened like a week later, or like days later?
They're both broken.
Path of Titans came out with Dinokairos like the following, like right near that time, right? Now, some of us who are more conspiratorially minded would think that that was a strategic move on Path of Titans' part. In other words, the Isle just created a wave, and they're going to ride it a little bit. They're going to show themselves to be competitive. They're going to show themselves to be superior by completing or showing a completed dino, whereas the leader of the genre is only talking about completing the dino. A lot of people suspected that Path of Titans was behaving in that way. I don't think that the Isle team mentioned any concerns about that whatsoever. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're not concerned about Path of Titans at all, and this is just completely with no regard whatsoever to competition. But, you know, business is business, and in business you do consider competition a lot of the times. So it wouldn't also surprise me if that is a consideration that they have, and this might be a measure that they've taken. It is kind of an extreme measure, because I think that it actually hurts. Well, I think it potentially hurts, because, you know, ahead of competing with your competition, you want to appeal to and satisfy your base, right? A lot of times. Now, if you do consider your competition to be a legitimate threat, you will take actions directly to respond to what they're doing ahead of
Team to know. They released the concept art, then a week later Pot released theirs.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. You know, a lot of times, you know, things are coincidence, but I think there were more than just that example of them behaving in that way. And honestly, if you're anyone other than the Isle, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, every time that you can get your game brought up in a conversation in relation to the Isle, even if your dino isn't as good at all, the fact that anyone is talking about you, you know, next to the Isle, you know, in the same conversation as the Isle, is beneficial to you. I would think that everyone would have a fucking Dinokairos model out. You know what I mean? I would think that everyone who was gonna do a Dinokairos model, as soon as the Isle mentioned Dinokairos, put it out right now. And it's the speed that got done that actually would make one think that it's more likely that Path of Titans had that model and was holding it, right? And that they actually may have a practice of having dinosaurs done and holding them and releasing them. And this would go against their word, because they, according to Path of Titans, they release dinosaurs as soon as they're ready, right? This would just seem like a really big coincidence to release something 1 week after the Isle has announced that they're going to do something. And they could have gotten the same amount of, you know, attention, you know, maybe like a month later, you know, or whatever. But the fact that they did it so quickly, and relatively speaking, their Dinokairos is quite good. It's quite well done. They could have done that just to show themselves up, you know, get themselves into the conversation, and not just get themselves into the conversation. Now the question is, hey, is the Isle's Dinokairos going to be as good as this? You know, because their Dinokairos is actually quite nice looking. So if you're the competition, you absolutely will do that sometimes. That's absolutely creating a opportunity for you. I personally
was smart on Pot's part, but I don't think that was entirely planned though.
It might be the case that just is a coincidence. I personally, my instinct leans towards, listen, these two teams know each other pretty well. They have their eyes on each other. I feel like they're competing. Even if they don't want to acknowledge that they're directly competing, they're absolutely competing, because businesses compete with each other. But now, the interesting thing, though, is whether the Isle actually considers that to be a threat to what they're doing, or their business model, or if it's going to impact their business negatively. If they perceive that to be an actual threat, in other words, that's giving legitimacy to Path of Titans. It's like, oh, that's not just a dinosaur game that is trying to be the Isle or trying to compete with the Isle. That's a legit game that's coming up. If they actually are viewing it that way, that's significant, because that would mean that it got them to change their behavior. In other words, they were going to bring out their Dino Kairos, but maybe they delayed it because of what the competition just did. They brought out their own, so now it's like, oh, well, now we have this standard we have to meet, and if it doesn't absolutely crush, it's going to make us look stupid or embarrassed. And the worse, it's going to continue to keep Path of Titans in the conversation.
Tina.
To counteract that,
I think it was half planned.
Well, half planned is planned. Half planned is planned. If it's on your mind, it is absolutely a part of your motivation. But if that is the case, it is interesting to see the leader of the genre react to a competitor in that way, because it does say that, hey, they're actual competition. But yeah, even that's important. But then if that also got them to change their schedule, that's like so smart of Path of Titans, because you're getting the leader to delay what they're doing, because nobody likes delays in the Path of Titans audience. The Isle audience. The Isle want their dinos now. They're excited about what they're talking about now. So if you can get if you can get your competition to start doing things that their audience doesn't like, it only helps you, and it only brings you up in the conversation. Now, the way that you would counter that you potentially would counter that if you're the Isle, is, all right, let them ride that wave all the way to the beach. We're gonna stay right here in the sea, and if they wait long enough, it doesn't matter if they came out with a good Dino Kairos. Because when the Isle does something, it's news. It's immediately newsworthy in the genre. So they're going to bring out their Dino Kairos. All they have to do is be just as good. If they really want it to not give any credit back to Path of Titans, it has to be better. Because then you can always say, oh, well, with time comes quality. You know, the others rush theirs. This one's better. And it continues that kind of built-in thinking that the Isle has the best quality, the best dinos, it's the best in the game series. But if it is like slowed down by this and it's not as good later, you know, not great for the Isle's audience. Okay, I don't want to go too far off on the tangent here because I'm forgetting what I was supposed to be talking about. But yeah, that would be that would be like my third theory to why there's not many dinos, because they could be hiding them. They also could be, in other words, they could be hiding them from us, or they could be hiding them from the competition. Because if you do surprise the players with new dinos in these updates, you're also surprising the competition, and you're taking away their ability to basically, oh, the Isle's got something coming out next month, all right, let's get something coming out next month to compete with it. You mess up their timing, you know. And if they're not releasing dinos to compete with the Isle, one thing they're doing is not releasing dinos. And a lot of people in the Path of Titans community, let's not give too much credit to this, because they always complain. They complain about how long they're waiting between dinos, right? We know Path of Titans has a lot of dinos. There are a lot of indicators, if you are thinking about this whole competition thing, that would point to the fact that these two games are being competitive with each other like that, and that Path of Titans is strategically releasing their dinos. And it's not exactly as they're saying, where as soon as it's ready, we're going to release it. No, as soon as there's the best opportunity is when you would release it. Because in business, you don't do something as soon as it's ready. That doesn't always benefit your business. When something's ready to be released, doesn't mean that it's ready to be released to the market. The market conditions may not be right.
This is my theory. Pot works on multiple dinos at a time and one of them happened to be Dano, then I'll release the concept art, then Pot pushes Dano to be done first.
I think you're probably right. My question on the specificity of that would be, are they making the decision to release it now because of the Isle, or are they gonna do that anyways? I would lean that this is being influenced a little bit by their competition. What was I gonna say about the other thing? I forgot what I was gonna say. I had a point. I swear I had a point. Yeah, anyways, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you can point to. I feel like they have a lot of dinos done now because, if you go back in Path of Titans videos and history and stuff like that, you'll see like Spino had a lot of functionality a couple years ago. You know what I mean? They released that when it made sense to release it. And now I remember the point I was making. So in business, just because your company finished making coats doesn't mean that because it's available, it's ready now and it's summer, that you start selling them during the summer. No, the time to release that is during the winter. In an industry where you don't have seasons like that, the time to release it absolutely does have to do with your competition as well, because you want to ride any waves you can to suck up media attention, because that is money. That's press's money. And so if your competition...
I do think it was influence.
Okay. Well, that would mean, that basically is that saying a little bit of in your mind is the whole thing when it comes to business. Yeah, I think that they did do that. In other words, if the Isle hadn't mentioned Dinokairos, we potentially would have waited longer to get the Dinokairos and Path of Titans. So I think that they were doing that opportunistically, shrewdly. That was very good move on their part to get themselves some media attention, to get themselves some comparisons, and to get more players. And I think that worked. And you know what? That the third effect might have also had is if you get your competition to slow down their schedule because they're afraid of that you might one up them anytime they try to do a dino, that works in your benefit too. It's like a three-prong move. It's like taking a stone and hitting 3 or 4 targets with it. Now the Isle's not dumb. So I assume if that's the case, they know that. So if you're assuming that the Isle is considering their competition when they're doing this and they're adjusting their roadmap with that in mind, I think one of the sensible things to do is to hide some of your more important dinos that you feel like they have dinos here, right? Don't get me wrong. They have the Compy. They added Packless Cephalosaurus. Remember, that one was a surprise. Let's not forget. When they combined one of those updates, it wasn't the way that wasn't planned in the beginning. And then some dinos disappeared on the roadmap after the Dinokairos incident, So if that's the case, if they're doing this they're hiding it, they're basically hiding it from us, but they're hiding it from the competition too, to prevent them from having time to plan on a release, because it's a gamble if you're going to go ahead and release a dino that's not really ready yet just to compete with your competition. It can backfire. You can further instill the idea in people's minds that the Isle is the A League and Path of Titans is the B League or the C League, or it's like Beast of Bermuda level, because that's the impression that people will get, because immediately a lot of people made that connection. They were like, oh, Dinokairos mentioned by the Isle, of course Path of Titans is going to come out with their thing. So, but yeah, if that backfires, then that can hurt you. So that could be a reason why the dinos disappeared, but that's a good thing.
We didn't get Pashi from Pot, which was I missed opportunity. Both Isle and Primal Carnage released their Pashi around the same time.
Yeah, so now it could be the case that they don't have a Packy, or they don't have one ready yet. But it would have been cool if they had released their own Packy by now. Which means that the Isle had good timing in that case. So, now, But yeah, if that third theory is correct, then it actually might be good for the player base, because the Isle can address two things at once. One, they deliver the dinos that they know everyone wants, and two, they hide the timing of the dinos delivery from their competition so that they don't get scooped. That's like in the news industry when somebody gets a hold of a story and you want to be the first one to break the story. You break it first, that means you were the first. Everyone else is copying you. So they could be delivering dinos as a surprise. That'll work the first time, and then the POT would be able to kind of guess, well, all right, looking at what's in this update, we can kind of guess what dino they might want to do. But then, you know what cuts against this theory? They wouldn't be giving specific info about what dinos they're doing next. Like, they are talking about doing a new Utah Raptor. I don't know why. I like the Utah Raptor in the Isle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a fan of the skin one. Like, I don't need the feathers. I like the feathers too. The feathers are cool. But I was a little surprised, as somebody who's on the side of, I think the Isle is more competitive behind the scenes with Path of Titans than they're letting on, and vice versa. As somebody who is thinking on that line, I was surprised to hear them say that, because it's like, well, why would you tell them that info? Now they can scoop you. But not necessarily. Tactically speaking, the Path of Titans already has the new Utah Raptor. Well, their mod, the primordial.
Probably. It is planned for pot though, so can't wait.
Yeah, that's true. So their mod, the modders that made the Primordial Tyrants Utah Raptor already released that, and it's an awesome Utah Raptor. Would it be interesting to know that if that like inspired that new direction on the Utah Raptor? Like, they saw how good it was and they were like, oh, it really, maybe we should step it up because, we have a Utah Raptor. Or maybe it was the opposite reaction, like, oh, that's disgusting. Like, I don't like the comparisons that people are making with their Utah Raptor with ours, so maybe we need to do something that's completely left of field or go in a completely different direction, where the other guys are going to have a hard time following this up. Either way that goes would be interesting, in my opinion. But personally, I like the Utah Raptor as it is, so I hope they keep it. And I'm not saying I wouldn't like to have another Raptor in addition, but like in conjunction with, in addition to. Don't take the Utah Raptor away, man. I mean, something doesn't have to be 100% scientifically accurate for it to be enjoyable in a video game, right? We all loved Jurassic Park, so we're okay with the Utah Raptor not having feathers. But if you want to throw another one in that has feathers, not going to complain. Now, the cryptic part, which makes me think, oh, this also could just be bait, which would also reinforce my idea that they're competitive, is Dondi, the freaking project director himself, is throwing the bait himself. You know what I mean? In other words, it's one thing if one of the others say that's what they're working on. It's a completely different thing when the leader comes out, and if this is bait, him baiting himself. Anyways, that could be bait, and like maybe they don't end up doing that for like a really long time, or like maybe they make the competition think that it's coming out in the next update, and that's like completely something different. Oh, here comes Rex. You know what I mean? So that would be interesting. But yeah, so yeah, you could kind of go either way with that last detail. But yeah, that's enough on that. Let's continue to update 7 here, the lifetime or the elder system. In other words, of all the things that are planned for Evriba, I personally like this the least, because, and hear me out, alright? Elders. I just don't like the obsession with it. I don't like the prioritization of it, over getting the actual dinos into the game. Like, these are cool and everything. Like, I love the versioning of this where it's like the elders look different.
We all know the Isle isn't going for scientifically accurate.
They have scientific accuracy in some regards, but they have taken some creative liberties in other regards. In a field like this, or in a genre like this, you do have a certain amount of latitude because the dinos are not walking around today. That's why we can't say to Beast Bermuda, hey, you can't have your Apatosaur that color, or hey, Path of Titans, it doesn't make sense for that thing to have stripes.
They're going for JP style.
Well, that's an obvious inspiration for the entire thing. So, but it's not. It wouldn't actually be correct to say that JP or the Isle are scientifically inaccurate. It wouldn't actually be correct unless you're making really specific statements about, like, this dino we know was quadrupedic. It didn't walk on two legs, and it's walking this way. The thing is, you have so much latitude with this genre because the dinos aren't walking around today. The scientific theories compete with each other. Yes, there are dominant theories where it's like, we're pretty sure that the T-Rex had feathers or whatever, like, or we're pretty sure that the Utah Raptors, or they might even say we're absolutely sure. But that's not to say that there aren't strains that didn't have it, or that's not to say that that's to the exclusion 100%, like there are absolutely no subspecies or anything like that. There's just so much latitude that scientifically makes sense that it's hard to say to a game that's doing a prehistoric animal, that's not right. It's really hard to do that unless you have the absolute correct answer.
Xerox.
You know what I mean?
Are you a dev?
Hi, Xerox. Yes, I am. I'm a dev for The Great Circle. It's an African survival game. I was inspired by this game, which is why I'm doing this review of the roadmap here. But yeah, so and that's the case with fantasy, and it's the case with genres where you don't have the real life examples. You do have the ability to say that your game or your story is scientifically accurate, even if it's not like even if you don't like say like have the research to know, oh, the Spinosaurus was this how many feet tall, or it was exactly something. You could still say it's accurate within the context that you're doing your thing. You know what I mean? Because let's go back years to when Jurassic Park first came out, right? Let's say the science that we have today doesn't exist. We ask the question, is this scientifically accurate? All right.
Xerox.
Let's withhold that statement.
I love your new game. Can't wait to get my PC to play the Great Circuit.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I got a free demo. It's on Steam now, so you can actually try it out. The paid version coming later.
But I agree. Why they adding the elder system before adding more dinos?
More on that in a second. Now, those of you who are about to say, hey, hold on, they knew the freaking the Velociraptor wasn't that big when they put it on there. All right, yes. All right, I'll grant you that. But, like, everything else, let's say the paleobotany, scientifically accurate, right? Let's say the construction of the cars and stuff, scientifically accurate. Let's say the fact that they use electric fences to put the dinos in there. We've never done that before in real life, but that may be the most prudent way to do it. You could say that that's based on science. Scientifically accurate does not have to be scientifically correct. It just has to be based in science.
Oh, I will pay for it when I get my PC. It's like a Darkham.
Imagine a science fiction where you have like completely made up animals, but there's a scientific theory behind each animal, right? You can also say that that's scientifically accurate even if it's fiction. There are a lot of games and movies and entertainment materials that are not nonfiction. In other words, they're not documentaries, they're not real life, they're actually fictional stories, but you can say that it's scientifically accurate within the context. So it's like, did dinosaurs really live on an island? That doesn't really matter. What we're talking about is, are these the right dinos for the period within the context that they're saying? Hey, these are dinos from the Cretaceous period. Is it scientifically accurate if this were to happen on an island that a company owned and was using fences and a hurricane came? If all those things were to happen, does this make sense? In entertainment and movie making and game making and narrative making and everything, as long as it makes sense, that's basically the same thing as scientific accuracy, functionally speaking. So I personally feel they have a lot of latitude with how they want to do their dinos style-wise. And, you know, if it were me, giving my 2 cents, if I was a dev in the room or whatever, I'd be like, you know what, you don't really have to like be a slave to the science. It's evolving all the time. They're finding new fossils and shit all the time. There's still a lot of room for us to do things that we think make sense, and as long as science doesn't completely exclude this possibility, it's okay for us to do it, you know what I mean, and still say that it's scientifically based. Something doesn't have to be a copy and paste off of Wikipedia. As long as it's based in paleontology, you can say it's scientifically based. Anyways, back to the Elder system. So my personal peeve about the whole Elder thing was just like, I just did not like seeing all these Elder models, while cool, ahead of the idea of, hey, let's get the Velociraptor into the game before we have the Elder system of the Velociraptor.
Good point. They're just not scientifically correct to real life dinos.
They're not 1-to-1, but that's okay in fiction. In fiction, if you want to say something's not scientifically accurate in fiction, that's 100% of fiction, because it is not a true story. Therefore, it is not a true situation. You know what I mean? But it doesn't work like that. It's like, as long as all of it's a speculation on if this were to happen, and this were to happen, and this were to happen.
Sire Imma, watch your Utah Raptor stream.
Oh, thank you. I'll see you later. If all these things were to happen, we think it would look like this, and we want to make it entertaining. So it's like, that's pretty much all you need. But yeah, the Elder system, the just seeing the models prioritize so much, you know what I mean? Every time I was seeing people like kind of go Google Gaga over that, I was also saying, like, you realize this means you're gonna have to wait longer to get that dino, right? And how many of these models came out was like foreshadowing to me, like, there are a lot of dinos that are gonna take a long ass time to get into this game if they are really serious about this Elder system. I personally, not from a position of criticism, but from a position of just expressing, hey, in an alternate universe, if I were working on a dino game and we had the option to do Elder system or something else, I would do something else. Elder system, in my opinion, it feels kind of unnecessary. Like, you're doing all these new models and stuff like that. I feel like you can enrich what you already have. Like, I know that the Elder dinos look different, but how different are they going to look? Are you going to be able to mess with the colors like you can with the new skin system that are coming up for the regular dinos?
I don't mind stylized dino, as we don't know 100% what they look like, and it's just for fun.
Yes, that's true. Yes, but my contention is you could still say something stylized. As long as science doesn't say that's 100% not possible, you can still say it's scientifically based or scientifically accurate. It doesn't have to be the most likely theory for it to be scientifically accurate. Definitely not by movie standards, but I think by game standards too. But yeah, you know what I would do instead of Elder system? Let's say we couldn't do Elder system, but people still wanted to have the ability to have like a difference in their dinos, like something gets stronger or something. I would do, alright, so we create a variable that determines at birth how large your animal is going to be, right? So by the time you reach your adult stage, some players are going to be bigger than normal and stronger than normal, okay? By the time you reach your adult stage for other players, some players are going to be smaller and faster than normal. You maybe have some random players who end up being the normal size, but they can go longer without water. I would make all of those variables unknown. So you find out when you reach your adult stage. You can't actually work your way into it the same way that the Elder system is. Like, they're going to say, hey, here's the path that you have to take to get to it. And I'm not saying that that's not going to be enjoyable or a viable way of game playing. I feel like this, like a kind of enriching the biodiversity in the animals that you have, maybe having strains or subspecies within your thing where you only have to change your model a little bit instead of having a completely different model. and have different sides can add a whole lot of playability to the game. You know what I mean? The fact that you can't choose exactly what you're going to turn out to be, but you're kind of finding out as you go, is cool. You could even make it so that you influence it. So like maybe, let's say your animal has the genetic disposition to be stronger. So if you eat a lot of meat and are doing a lot of running around, plus you have that genetic marker, you not only get your normal size, but you get the added benefit of those genes.
And it's not like Dot where the elder system is very important to the gameplay.
Right. Let's say normal stats for your Utah is 5 points of strength. Let's just say that as a general term, right? But you have the genes to reach 8. If you maximize the food you eat and you get all the nutrition, and you can reach an 8 if you go absolutely all out. Let's say that's a possibility. But let's say you have the genes to reach 8, but you don't maximize getting the right food all the time and stuff. You still have superior genes, so you end up at like a 6 or 7 and not an 8. That's interesting. You know what I mean? That's very interesting. You could do a lot with that. That's stats. You can apply that to size. You can apply that to skin patterns where, yeah, you're picking the overall look or whatever, but the micro details or whatever among each dino is randomly determined. So it's like you don't get to choose how long the stripes are, how many spots there are, how large the spots are, how long your claws grow. Certain things just being randomized. I think that is way more interesting, and you could even say it's scientifically based.
4. Red.
How dare you spam my chat, Mr. Bot? I have to ban you now. But yeah, the elder system, I'm not gonna say don't put it in. I'm just gonna say don't put it ahead of the dinos, man. Put the dinos and then add the elder system. But there is a very reasonable reason for why you would want to work on this mechanic before putting the dinos that are going to use the mechanic in place. Because you know how to make the dinos. You don't know exactly how the mechanic's going to go yet, so you really need to focus on that. There's a lot of logic behind that development process. But every time I look at these models, dude, it's like, come on, man. Why are you teasing us? Why are you showing us Tyrannosaurus? You know we want Tyrannosaurus now. This is only telling us that we're definitely not getting Tyrannosaurus anytime soon, is what this means. Definitely not, because they're not going to do it before the elders. Look at that beautiful gator. God dang, that looks like my gator. That it's definitely different, but it does look very similar. Cerrado, we got Carnotaurus, and the other thing is this is reminding us all of what we don't have right now. It's another thing about this whole thing. They're showing us dinos that we want. Oh, well, we do have Steggy. We have a bunch of stuff. Alright, so anyways, the description says, elders are larger, more powerful variations, and the adult stage, of the adult stage life. Okay? They are only accessible by following certain diet perk pathways. Elders start off stronger than the highest tier adult of their species. After completing their reign, they depreciate, embracing death willfully. Leaves you with a bonus you can apply to a new life as that species, but dying in any old fashion. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually fine, cool, and it makes a lot of sense. I like it. I still want the dinos first, you know what I mean? This is a bonus. This is a dessert. We do want the meal. But this is cool. I like that the direction that this is going, because it's talking about passing on your genes, basically. So the elder system is cool. I just wish it would take a backseat to dinos. Anyways, Is there any developmental reason to put this after or before dinos, other than just the fact that you're implementing a new mechanic? Like, couldn't you do the dino before this?
Team to know.
Could. I'm not
Still
sure
think
about
we
that.
need at least a few more dinos so they're a good selection and makes the game more balanced.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think the community agrees with you. That's why most of it's on Legacy still. You know, the community is really good at telling you what's really important to it. It's kind of like when people ask you about your movie preference. You know, would you like to watch a movie in super high 8K resolution that's maybe not a good story, but it looks better than anything you've ever seen? Or would you prefer to would you rather sit through a 3-hour movie that looks great, better than anything you've ever seen?
Xerox.
Or sit through
stream on Twitch?
Or sit through a 3-hour movie that looks like it was shot on a camera phone, but the story is really freaking good. You can't turn away. You have to know what's happening. I think a lot of us would choose to go with the better story over the looks. So I think people enjoy substance over flash if they know that substance is good. Do I stream on Twitch? Yeah, actually, I'm streaming on Twitch now, I think. Yeah, there are 2 viewers on Twitch right now, 3 on YouTube. So I am Simos. I'm dual streaming right now. Howdy to my Twitch people, by the way. Let's see here. Yep, and it's SuchoKing on Twitch. So this is fine. This is one of those things where it's like, you know, the more the merrier. Yeah, we want more dinos. We always you can never have enough dinos. Never, ever. You got 100 carnivores, add 101. Like, more dinos is always good. More features and mechanics, always good. The question is, what do we want right now? We want more dinos right now. We don't necessarily need the Elder system right now. We need dinos. So yeah, the system will get done.
Xerox.
And no doubt it will be good.
I was just wondering, Emma, go back to your Utah Raptor stream.
But we're going to freaking play Legacy until you start putting more of those dinos in, you know? So it's like, I feel like the Elder system is a very, very cool feature that we don't need right now. We need the dinos. Need the dinos because that puts us in Arima playing. We want the Elder system because that's going to make it better than Legacy. But look where we go. We go to the need. Legacy has what everyone needs. Alright. So that's Legacy. Let's see if there was anything interesting happening on the activity here. Nothing. These are just the models. Okay. And when we go to the perk system, we see they say description is, as players progress to their various growth milestones, you'll have the option to select between a variety of perks designed to support a varied play style. So this is the beginning of what I was describing with variability with the size and health and stuff like that, except you choose what's happening here in this case. That's all fine. In my particular case, for my game, I'm going with the player not being able to choose the specific perks that the animals have. Every animal's going to have the perks, but it's in my game, it's going to be randomized. It is going to be genetically based, but it's going to be something that you can't choose, and you don't know what it is until you get fully grown. I think that's cool. Here's an example of a game that's choosing to let you choose. We have seen this before, like I think in Beast of Bermuda, you're able to apply points or whatever to like certain abilities, so that's basically this, same thing. But this will be the first time that you can choose it in the Isle. I feel that this is a part of the Elder system, but this applies to every dino. In other words, if you were to look on the back end of the code or whatever, it might look very similar to Elders. Root axe.
Team to know.
That's the gift.
Like maybe give us Karato, Dillo, Harira, Ava, and Meggy. That's a lot, but we need them.
Yeah. You know what? Earlier, I was the one saying like, hey man, give us anything to get us by, because I think it was like a year and a half ago, or it was sometime around Christmas. Like, I know you just gave us update 3.5 or whatever, but give us something to get us by, you know, because we knew we weren't getting new dinos or updates for like the next 3 or 4 months at least, and it turned out to be like 8 months. I was one of those people who was saying, you know, what would be really cool. You know how it's really hard to survive as a baby Utah because there's no food for you to eat? What if the Utahs could like eat bugs or something like that? You know what I mean? Give us something, you know, something simple. Eventually they got around to like adding rabbits and deers and shit like that, but I was like, man, they could have done this so much sooner. Why did they never think of that? Why did they take that on?
Team to know.
They didn't really have to animate
and maybe
anything.
min me.
Those animals are easier to implement. It's interesting that they went with having those completely as AI and have left the AI of the dinos out of it. So you don't have dino AI anymore, I don't think, unless I'm wrong. Do we still have Dryos? From what I understand right now, it's turtles, rabbits, pigs, deer, regular animals. Question, why would that be? Why would they do that? Well, number one, I think that they want to have more functionality for the dinos. So, like, you want to see the animal behavior of the dinos. You want dino behaviors as AI. That's more complicated than just having, like, regular animal behaviors, because those are going to be a lot simpler and easier to understand. The dinos, you kind of almost want them to be able to do whatever the player can do, and more. Because the player doesn't really herd. They get on Discord and then they coordinate and then they herd that way. AI, you kind of want to see them herd or whatever, so it's like you have to give them more functionality than the player in a lot of cases. In my game, it's the opposite. In my game, the AI gets done really fast. Like, we have like 87 animals right now, AI animals, different species. I find that way easier to do than the player functionality, because the player has to be able to do so many other things, and the animals are just doing basic: find some water, find some food, go shelter when it rains, attack things that you want to kill, you know, herd up, you know, all those are really basic and easy. The player has to be able to do a whole range of other things. So it is interesting that this example in this game, it's the opposite. So it seems like they want the AI to be able to do exactly what the player can do, and more. Looking at the bottom of this card here, move this card from ongoing content to update 7. Move this card from update 4, overhaul and perk system, to ongoing content. It went back and then forth, and then it went back, and it got moved up to update 4. It's interesting. I don't know what that means yet. Let's see. All right, so that's 7 lifetime. Looking at this, I wonder if it will be enjoyable to have a dinosaur that lives a life. In other words, you're going to die of old age. It seems like that's what they're going for. I didn't see that written here. No, yep, here it is. Embracing death willingly. Well, I wonder then, okay, well, this is only going to be the case for elders. It seems like, going off of this info, they didn't say anything about dying of old age for regular dinos. They are alluding to it for elders, which I think makes sense. That's balance. That's a trade-off. You get more power, but it's not going to be infinite. It's going to run out. That makes sense. Now, here's a surprising update. Storm warning. In other words, weather. This is very surprising to me. I have weather. I have not nearly the experience that these guys have. Let me see here. Description. These systems will be based around bringing the island itself to life. Storms, floods, fires, etc. So they're talking about weather disasters. We want to make sure we build an atmosphere you can really get immersed in. So they want realness. They want realism here. That's the weather. That makes sense. I'm surprised that they haven't done this yet. They have day-night cycle, you know. There are some examples you can go by from people who have done weather systems and are selling them in various marketplaces. And it wouldn't really, nobody would bat an eye. You know, you could even take a system that somebody else has designed and extend it and customize it yourself. A lot of people do that. It makes sense. I mean, this feels like they're doing it from scratch, but it's going to end up looking like anything else anyone else is doing. I mean, which I'm going by the picture. This looks like my lightning strike. This looks like a lightning strike in my game. But it's like, when you're developing, it's like, I know people want to author things.
This I like.
I like this too, but I don't see why there's not this right now. This is like something that you can implement lots of different ways. I'm not saying it's easy to do right, but I am saying it is. There are lots of ways to get it done looking pretty good. And then if you want to really make it look great and extend the functionality of it so that it interacts with your environment and stuff, you can do that down the road, like as you go. But this surprised me. But anyways, yeah, this is gonna be cool. But it seems like basic weather stuff. For this to be this far down on the roadmap, I would want to think that there's gonna be more to it than just the flooding. However, I don't think they've attempted that. Like, this is something that Beast Bermuda does right now, but they have a lot of experience with. They've been working on that. That's their bread and butter right now. They know how that functionality works with the engine and stuff like that. So this would be something new that they're jumping into here. It just is a little bit surprising. At least the basic weather part, like without the flooding and the fires and stuff like that, that I can get. But weather, they had weather in Legacy. They had rain and stuff in Legacy, so it is a little bit surprising. Let's see here. Anything interesting on the card? No, just this picture. There is a potential, though. You know, there's a wild card here that, you know, something that I think is very important for the game that I don't see anywhere on this roadmap at all. I don't remember seeing it anywhere.
Again, why we getting elders before this?
Well, you know, when a developer with a lot of power on a team gets an idea in his head and he's really passionate about it, that's what you're going to get the focus on. Yeah, one thing that I don't see here, and I never saw on any of the previous roadmaps that I think is going to be really integral to the game, one, because the lead dev said so, is music. Where is the scoring? I see map, I see AI, I see UI, user interface overhauls, I see dinosaurs, but it's like, and there's no way this is all the dinos. It's like, where's the music? How that would apply with storms is, you know, you can have certain songs that come on when a storm is coming, or when you're in the middle of a storm, or if it turns into like a monsoon and the rain is really persistent and it's really causing flooding. Or if you're still looking to like build on like the spookiness of like nighttime, if you have it rain at night, you know, there's a lot of ways that music can enhance the experience and the environment, and it's surprising that it's not on the roadmap here. And it's also surprising that I don't think it's ever been on any of the roadmaps. As for it to be a feature that was in the previous game, or in Legacy, and the lead dev himself has said is going to be very important and integral. It's interesting that I don't see it here. The Great Circle has a huge music selection. We have a lot of it. Like, that's something that I really wanted, the cinematic feel of the whole experience of being in the wild and stuff. Like, it's interesting because they could license music, I'm sure, and they could also just port over their music from the other game. So it is interesting that it's not here.
Team to know. True music really adds the mood to the game.
Yeah, man. I'm working on a scene right now where it's like whenever, like, my game takes place inside of like a dead volcano, but like I'm going down a story path, right, where it's like the volcano activates and like there's steam everywhere, so it's like you get foggy mornings and days and stuff. And like I played some music that was really creepy, and it felt like Resident Evil Animals. It was really, it changed the entire tone and mood of the game. So I can imagine that even more so for dinosaurs. Like, you're just walking along and like out of nowhere you see the eyes of like Troodons like glowing in the fog coming towards you slowly, and they're like doing that howl, and you realize you're surrounded by like six of those suckers, and they're just closing in, and you've got the music cued like dun 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 dun, or if it's like a really slow creepy song. I can see people really being hype about that, you know what I mean? And they know they can do it. So it's like, it's interesting that it's not on the map, given that it's so important. It was mentioned by the dev, and you know they can do it. So it's interesting that it's not here. It's possible that this is something they want to do from scratch, and maybe this is so far down the line that it's just not like, it's not worth putting on the map right now. But it is interesting. Like, I don't see why it's not here, like in the ongoing content or whatever, like scored music and stuff like that. It's just like another conversation piece that can be going around, you know, for people to look forward to. It's interesting. I don't know the reason for that not to be there. Like, it doesn't even seem like it would be like clickbait, like, oh, they know they're not going to work on that for like 2 years or whatever, because it can come at any time. Like, you can bring some of the music, you can bring temporarily the music from Legacy into the new game. It works. And then you can slowly bring in tracks that are updated. I'm not sure what the reason behind that is, and I'm looking at this from a standpoint of everything has a reason, even though that is not always the case. Absolutely not. But like, I like to think that way, but I don't know the reason why that isn't there. It seems like an easy win. Easy conversation thing. Let's see, quality of life would be the 9th one. Let's see. During this update,
Dot is kinda in the same spot as Isle. The features are good, but there's a lack of variety of species.
Only in that regard are they in the same spot as Isle, I would say. Only in that regard. I think the Isle as a game is way more mature. Actually, I don't know a whole lot about DoD. I really do I'm curious about the game, and I want to play it and kind of see where it is. There's so much hate people throw at that game. That game has so much hate. It's like committed hate. Like, it's like people don't even forget the reason that they hate the fucking game. They already are armed. Whenever that game gets mentioned in chats and stuff like that, it's like, oh, that game that stole those things, or didn't have the rights to use the music and it made people think they did. That game that kicked Icy Caress and IGP out by hard coding them out of the game, breaking their terms and conditions by Steam. That game, that Day of Dragons. Oh my lord. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway, quality of life. During this update, I'm interested to know what this is, because I feel like everything they're doing is technically like quality of life. During this update, we'll be reassessing the quality of all previous systems. Oh no! Bringing them up to as equal a standard as possible before moving on to humans. Dude, that's why this is all supposed to be taking so long. That's supposed to already be happening. More of the Dino roster will still be added to the game after this point, but they will no longer be the focal point of production? Let me read that last sentence again. More of the Dino roster will still be added to the game after this point, but they will no longer be the focal point of production. I'm under the understanding that they are not the focal point of the production. I thought mechanics and base game code is the focal point of production right now. That's interesting. You know, you can't complain about a game getting more efficient, like better mechanics, more options, better graphics, more performance so that you're not lagging and stuff like that. But the idea that that's already supposed to be happening all the time, and at this point you're going to be checking to see quality of life pass. I mean, you do that, but I really hope the idea, once we get to that point, isn't supposed to be like, oh, we haven't been doing this all along, so now that we're really focused on it, you know, because it's numbered. This ain't in ongoing content, so then it makes you wonder, wait a second, these dinos don't show up before this happens. What are they saying? And it could go to the idea that Evrima is going to be a planned limited experience.
Dot is good. It already has most of the features in this list. It's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, I'll take a look. And didn't they just add a new dragon, or they're getting ready to add a new dragon to their lineup? Like, they have one right now, right? And they're adding a new, bigger dragon. That's interesting. You know, people say that Draconia is better, or it's like more developed and stuff like that. Like, I don't see how that's possible. Like, I know Draconia has its strong points. Draconia, you know, if you want to give like a simple, really simplified explanation, I'm not saying this is fair or anything. Draconia comes across my mind as like Path of Titans really early, and Day of Dragons comes across my mind like the Isle really, really, really early. In that there's more of what Day of Dragons is going for in their game versus more, there's not as much of what Draconia is eventually going for in their game yet. Saying nothing of the quality of what's in their game, because the quality of either game looks like it's quite good. Just saying, like, Day of Dragons has had the benefit of being around and developing on the same idea for a while, and it has a solid direction. Draconia has a solid-ish direction. I say that, and we're going off on a tangent here, I say that because I think their direction is going to change quite a bit over the next 6 months. I think that their ideas about how to sell their world are going to have to change for what they're doing. But anyway, that's another conversation. Anyways, let's get back to the quality of life thing. So this basically is just going to be like a review period of everything that's in the game and anything that's incongruent. Anything that's like, you know, the Utah has 2 abilities, but the Dryo only has 1. Therefore, it's a better dino. They may address things that look like they're not balanced in the game and like bring dinos up to match other dinos at that point. They could also reevaluate the balance of stats against each other. They could reevaluate the location of critical areas on the map. They could reevaluate how the game is even being played. They could come up with a completely new direction for Evrima. Or they could reach this point, decide that the game is pretty much good enough as it is, add the rest of the dinos for Evrima, and then you find out you're never going to be able to play T-Rex. You could find out that there's going to be no T-Rex, no Giganotosaurus, no Spinosaurus for you. They're going to be in the environment as AI or whatever, or they're not going to be in Evrima at all. Because that would go back to that idea that was mentioned that Evrima, like the Isle Legacy was not the real Isle. Evrima is not the real Isle. It's a part of the Isle. It's a piece. It's like, here's book 1, here's book 2, and not even in chronological order. Here's part 1, here's part 2, or here's this part of the island. Here's another part of the island where T-Rexes actually are, therefore you can play them. It could be something like that. So Evrima could literally be a part of the map, right? Isla Spiro, Evrima could be this section of the map. And then there actually might be another version of the Isle that comes out, and it is a different version of the map, or a different part of the map, could look
Team to know.
significantly different.
They're getting ready to add the Flame Stalker, and there's 2 dragons in the game right now. Draconia
That's the
is
one.
good but doesn't have a gameplay loop. I wouldn't say it's more developed.
That's right. Yeah. So now I remember they have the regular flying blue dragon thing, and then they have the one that doesn't have wings, though, the acid spitter. So those are the 2, and then this would be number 3 for them. So yeah, I would agree that it's not as developed, and the gameplay loop, although existent, is very, very, very functional, not made to be fully enjoyable yet. It just functions. It just works. Like, you can go and eat that plant, you can go drink that water, but it's like, why would you do that for more than 25 minutes? So yeah, it's working, it's functional, it's up, and that's fine. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. But yeah, it could be the case that if that is taken to be literal, and if I'm right in remembering how that was quoted, and if that actually was said by the developer, that could mean that this roster is the Evrima roster. You're not getting a Gigantanosaurus. By the way, I think that's how you're supposed to say it. I've been saying it since I played Dino Crisis, and I read it that way. I read it as Gigantanosaurus, like gigantic, you know? But for all the Gigas, you could not get a Giga or Rex in this part of the island. Or you could get it broken up. You could get Rexes in this region and Gigas in another region, like in the next version of the isle. Or you could get Gigas in this region, in the Evrima, but you get Rexes in the next version of the isle, because that's going to be a different part of the island where Rexes are, or something. Now, the exciting thing is, that means you're going to get way more dinos, because you got to have a full ecosystem and to fill up another part of the game. The sad thing is, how long is that going to take? So, I think the hope was, with taking this development approach where you focus on the base code and the mechanics that are going to be upgrading from Legacy, is that, you do that first, because that's going to be hard, because you didn't implement these newer mechanics because they weren't in Legacy, and you do the dinos second, because you can do those because you did them in Legacy. You're just going to do them better now. And it would be slow at first, and then it would speed up a lot. I think that was like a lot of people's expectation. It was mine, and it would be reasonable to assume. But being a dev for almost 2 years now, I can tell you it absolutely never ever works the way that you hope it will. So if that's your hope, might as well plan on that not happening. So they may have found out halfway along the way that, listen, take your time, do the quality, but when you finish in 2 years, the technology will have moved twice as fast. So now you gotta update the game again to match what's out there now. So maybe you thought the performance that you were getting on Evrima at this point was okay. Now we've moved on to a different standard. People have gotten used to playing other games. Now they're expecting more. So now, here comes the Isle Chinova, or the Isle Intara, or whatever they want to name the next isle. But it's like, here we go again. And it's like, before you get to the 6th version of the isle, you bring them all together, and it's Isla Spiro, the map. And you get a game for each part of the map. What was it they said? That the map was so big that they need
Team to know.
They would need like 3 servers.
From what I know, they're not added Apex dinos for balance reasons, and once they add Apexes, everyone will want to play it. Would have been harder the other way around.
Well, I don't know of anyone who's not going to want to play Apex when Apexes come. That's just how it is. If they're saying they won't play other dinos because of Apexes being in the game, I mean, there's no way to avoid the rush of when that dino comes out and it's fresh off the press. Yeah, everyone's going to want to play that no matter when you release it. If you release it next week, everyone's going to play Rex. If in a year, after you've added 3 other dinos, you release Rex, everyone's still going to play the Rex on day 1. Take a look at Path of Titans. They've got a million dinos now. Not a million, but they have a whole lot. They have more dinos than anyone else in the series, in the genre, I think. If you include the official dinos and the mod dinos and stuff, there's a lot of dinos. Anytime a dino comes out, everyone's playing it on day one. So I don't see how you can avoid that. Now, if they're saying it's not going to be fair, because if some people are choosing Rex because of its superior stats, I don't think that is really such an issue that you have to put it back, like you have to, like, delay when you can bring the dino out. I understand if you need to develop its secondary attacks or its special abilities and stuff, but I don't think that's a reason to put it last. You know what I mean? Because that's the case for any dino that you release. People are going to want to play it. What you do is you balance the dino. What was the one that they were saying that they couldn't release because it didn't have counterplay? It was like last year. They were talking about Sucho towards the beginning of the release of Everima. The reason is because it appeared in the Hope trailer and it wasn't T-Rex, so people assume, hey, that'll be the midway point. If we're getting Snaggy
I still
this
need
month,
a good name.
we're getting this other dino next month. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. We should be getting Sucho next. And they said we can't release Sucho even though we're releasing Dinosuchus because it wouldn't have counterplay. Well, the answer is, why don't you just adjust the stats? The answer is, okay, you can make it equal to, like, Dinosuchus, can't you? Like, can't you just bring the stats down and then, later on when you bring other dinos in, if you want it to be above the other dinos, you just increase the stats.
But it's hard to balance the smaller and mid dino if everyone plays Apex.
Well, if you're talking about balancing the population, that's a different issue than balancing the stats. If you're talking about balancing the population, what you have is a game issue. You have a gameplay issue. And that's not going to be solved by releasing the dino later, because what you're saying, if you're saying that everyone's going to play this dino because the other dinos either are not fun to play, they're too hard to play, or people just don't get it, but people do like Sucho or they like Rex, so everyone's going to play that. And for anyone, the few players who want to play the other dinos, when the Rex comes out day one, they're going to play their role. It's not going to be fair to them because more people are going to want to play this. What are you changing by bringing it in later? The question is, how are you making it not so that everyone's going to pick it? Are you going to put a limit on how many people can be on the map as Rex? I can only think of that. But then you're talking about a gameplay mechanic. That's not a dino mechanic, or that's not a character. If you're talking about bringing that in, okay, I can kind of see that. But then it's like you're fighting the waves. You're swimming against the current. It's like, that's like saying, why are people so interested in playing dinosaurs when we got like these deers and stuff? It's a dinosaur game. That's the genre. This is a subgenre of survival, dinosaur survival. We're here for the dinos. That's why we went to Legacy, even though Everima is the better game technically and mechanically speaking. They have more dinos there, so that's where everyone is. That's not going to change if you bring the dino in later. And here's the thing. It's like, if that is the case, let's say you don't have the mechanics to like limit how many people can play Rex on the map when you bring it out. What are you going to do about the fact that if people just don't like the other dinos, you can't change that. That's a message to you. Like, there's something missing from the other gameplay, like that would make it more fun, or would make it that people would get it more, or people would see a benefit in it. From what I understand, what I heard, other than, the same thing that you just said, which is, overpopulation, balance issues, counterplay, is they want to make it harder to get the Rex. That is going to be very interesting, because if we're not talking about adjusting stats so that it takes you a long time to grow it, or if we're not talking about like limiting how many people can play it, which is like, I mean, that's hard to pull off. How do you tell people they can't play something that they paid to play? I mean, I don't get that part. So if you're not going to either of those two routes, it's like you're talking about creating
that was
a
dumb.
different...
We all right have the giant croc. What counters the croc? That makes no sense to not add Sucho.
Yes, so that is why I don't fully believe that reason, or there's more to that, like another reason that they're not saying, but would explain why they're not putting it in. That's not the whole reason, because that doesn't answer the whole question, because as you just said, well, there's already a dino that can't really be countered, except by Stego. But then, what about people who say, well, Stego's overpowered, there's nothing that really can counter it, except for Dinosuchus, if Stego's in water. But, you know, there's always going to be people saying that about whatever you put in. People are going to be like, man, these raptors are too fast, dude. Or, man, there's too many people playing a raptor. You know, is that not considered overpopulation when you have packs of 7 raptors fighting one character? What's fair? What's balanced? You know? What are the guiding principles that determine this in this genre? I don't know. I don't think we have the full answer. What's interesting is if they're coming up with a completely different answer that's not been seen before in this genre, in this game, or any other game, if they're going to try to create a new mechanism, I'm interested to see what that is, because I don't know what it is. I think eventually they're going to have to release the Rex, because that's what people want. And they're going to have to let people play it whenever they want to. They can make it take as long as they want to grow, but people are going to want to play Rex. It comes with the territory of being inspired by a Jurassic Park movie.
I just joined the stream. They not adding Sucho.
Oh, what's up, Jada? Not yet. I don't see it in the list of things here either. And, you know, being a Sucho myself, I'm a little offended, you know. I feel a little bit left out, you know. Where's the long-snouted crocodile mimic? Where's Sucho? He was in the Hope trailer. I had hope. They've taken it from me. But don't worry. Life goes on. Or finds a way, as they say. So, from quality of life, we move on to ongoing content. So, a UI overhaul.
Team to know. Stego could kill a Sucho, Croc can kill a Sucho.
Not according to the devs. They say Sucho would have no counterplay. So either they're planning on making it ridiculously powerful.
I still need a good name.
Something else is...
Or dang, they ain't adding Sucho.
There's no reason to suggest they won't eventually add Sucho, but they made it clear that they wouldn't add it yet. And they made that clear a long ass time ago is the issue. I'm going to take a 2-minute bathroom break. I'll be right back because I've been patting my leg, holding it in for a little bit. So I'll be right back. Thanks for sticking around, folks. All right. Just got back. I just made it rain. All right, thanks for waiting. Okay, so we're on the UI overhaul. This is a part of the ongoing content. Getting towards the end here. We have a complete overhaul of the in-game UI HUD to bring it up to date for our development needs. Additional functionality and user accessibility. This includes, but is not limited to, server information, admin tools, HUD indicators, and more. They didn't really say much here. The HUD's been evolving slowly, and I think it's been matching their expanded use of stats and status effects. So it's like you're getting diets on the HUD now. You're getting the scent markers up in the compass. So that's been happening all along. I don't think that it's going to change from that much, you know. Let's see here. You'll probably get an indicator for like if you have a mate or partner for that courtship thing, but it's pretty, you know. Let me see. I see no reason to put it in any other update now that I'm thinking about it. That's probably going to continue to evolve as long as the Rima's game is evolving. So when I look at the activity on the card here, it was moved from update 4, UI overhaul and perk system, to ongoing content. I think that makes sense. What this could indicate is they have actually changed the parameters of what was planned for status effects and just overall dino stats to be more complex. I remember when I started my game and I was saying that, you know, the Isle Legacy really inspired me. You know,
I still
but one
need
thing
a
that I
good
would
name.
do differently is
HUD meaning on planes its heads up display. What is it in Isle?
oh, same thing. It's the same thing. In games, it's all heads up display. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do in the animal genre, which is, I'm now in the survival genre, but I wanted to do a lot more than just go to food, go to water, group up, and eat gore. I wanted to have nutrition, strength points, and agility, way more stats, like showing you have milk to give to your young if you're a nursing animal. I wanted a much more complicated and in-depth experience.
Hi Sucho King.
Hey,
It's me Queen, stay safe from YT.
long time no see. Welcome back. How you doing? Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. All that stuff. Yeah, I wanted to do that I started mine in May.
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I started my
How
project
are you?
in May 2020. I'm doing great as well. Thanks for asking. And I'm glad you're doing well. I started my project in May 2020, so this was before Everima came out. So I think it looks like they have figured out that the future of their genre is a more complicated survival experience with stats and status effects, and they're going down that route. I thought of it
I
first.
still need a good name. Hey, the background sound is too loud, we can't hear you.
Oh, the sound's too loud? You sure? I'll bring the mic closer. But yeah, I was saying that, yeah, I think that they decided to start doing some of these things that they're doing now kind of halfway through or after they started the process. And that would just be right in line with when they started moving their dinos around and, you know, started to prioritize some things over others, and that makes a lot of sense. All right, and then the last thing says, copy this card from UI overhaul.
It's quite late where I am, RN. I will see if I can catch a stream next time.
All right, well, thanks so much. Hey, you know, the videos on demand are available anytime. Yeah, the last thing it says, oh yeah, and it looks like the date on this was May 7th, 2021. And it previously was changed October 3rd.
Link says Horus. See you later. Stay
last
safe.
May. All right, you too. See you later. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, that makes sense. I think they changed the parameters of the project. I think they're going to continue to do that. Let's see. AI inhabitants. Wow. So this here is empty on the description. Let me ask a question for anyone who's been paying attention to the Isle. Is that guy who was doing the AI, Amarok, is he still a part of the team? Because from what I understood, he was the lead developer of the AI. That was like his main focus. But he was also one of the main people who was moving the game from blueprints, this is developer stuff now, into like C++ code. He was one of the people who could code just directly off the line, not just with the Epic interface with their method of.
I still need a good name. IDK.
Because if he's not, it would make sense as to why a lot of these AI got taken off of the development map and pushed all the way to the end here. You know what I mean? Because he was spearheading that. And if you notice, maybe I should not say this.
Team to know.
I feel like I'd be breaking like bro code or something, like developers. You're not supposed to talk about this stuff. Well, let me see if there's a polite way to say this. Let me see. Well, put it like this. It looked like he was programming a lot of stuff himself for the dinos. He was working with the dinos on the AI, and if he left, there are other developers out there who have AI that, they kind of have already made some stuff, so they may have purchased some stuff from somebody else, and it might explain why there are so many animals and no more dino AI. A lot of animals that are available from other developers who are outside the team of the Isle have some basic AI already included with their product. In the industry, this is called middleware. You guys refer to it as like something else or whatever, but this is like a normal part of business. Like, businesses don't like have employees that carry messages from their office to like another office somewhere else in the country. They just use the United States Postal Service. I live in the U.S. They use the Postal Service, or they use UPS, or they pay for FedEx or a shipping company. They outsource. You know what I'm saying? So they could have outsourced some of these animals, or they could have outsourced all the animals. I don't know if they outsourced the AI, but the AI is so basic that it really, all the AI could have come with the animals. But a lot of those animals were not made from scratch. So if that is the case where that guy is no longer working on AI, or if there was a lapse in where he couldn't be working for the project, and maybe he's working for it now or something. I haven't looked at the blog in a while. I probably should.
I still need a good name. Hey, what is the time in USA?
11 p.m. So it would explain why if they lost him, they would have had to switch to a different AI system, and there already are animals that have some basic AI that they can use. That will line up. Let me look for some evidence real quick. I'm interested now. We'll go to Steam. Looks like it's 16. It's on sale from $19.99 to $16.99 right now, 15% off. We're gonna go to how do I get to the hub?
Team to know. If you end up getting Dodd, you should do a video looking at their Trello board. I like this kind of video, very fun.
Thank you. I may do this more often. People have said to me before, since I'm a dev, it might be interesting for me to give my take. Oh, hang on. So I'm looking at January 31st. the most recent devlog. I think this is this year. Yeah. This would have been the most. Yeah, okay, here he is right here. All right, so it says, so here's the lead programmer. All right, here's something interesting. Every other time I've seen his name, it said AI programmer. Like they wanted to make sure people understood he was working specifically on the AI. He was doing other stuff too, like debugging the server and stuff like that, because he actually is a coder. Like he can do line code and stuff, but it's like here they're showing just programmer, which may indicate that he's doing a more just generalized list of tasks. He says, hey everyone, back in full swing after the much needed Christmas break. I've spent the last few weeks looking at our easy anti-cheat. Okay, so that's, for example, what I was saying. He was debugging the server. He was also looking at, like, I guess he was one of the people looking at ways that people were trying to hack the game or hack the server list. You know how in Legacy there's like 1 million Chinese servers and they all have the same number of players, supposedly. He was helping to deal with that, I guess. He says he was looking at our anti-cheat integration and resolving a number of issues that had arisen with its initial implementation. It's important to note that we have a zero tolerance policy for all forms of cheating/hacking, as we deem it imperative to ensure that our players can engage with one another in a safe and secure environment. Swinging over, this is very interesting. Swinging over to a lighter topic, I've also been delving more into the behaviors of our ambient AI animals with some new animations and more appropriate movement for their respective species. And lastly, I've begun reworking and testing some of the dinosaur AI and can't wait to share it with you. So that's the part that is most interesting. So he is back to work on the dinosaur AI, and he had not been focused on it before. So he's saying he's begun reworking and testing. I have a feeling that it's not just the Christmas break that he hasn't been working on the dinosaur AI. I think that once they started implementing those regular animals, he started focusing exclusively on those. So I would wonder why, the dinosaurs already had a leg up on the regular
Dance
animals.
BTW. I just got pot today because I was just frustrated with how Evrima is taking 6 months per major update.
Oh, howdy. Welcome to the stream. Hey, that's great. I'm glad. I hope you like POT. It's pretty much my main dino game these days, even though I'm not playing much these days. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that you'll be getting out of that game. It has a whole lot to see. That's great. Thanks for being in stream, by the way. So it is interesting that...
Makes sense. Server lag was a very big problem and still kinda is.
It is interesting that the focus switched all the way to the basic animals. So I don't know the reason for that just by reading this. I can tell you, I'm working on the animal game where it's like I'm not doing multiplayer, I'm doing single player. So the AI has to be in the environment or else it's like dead. It is a difficult task getting AI to work and behave like the animals that you want them to be. Usually though, like if you already have a leg up on one system, even if you're investigating a new system, you kind of are planning to use the system that you already have because you're just building on to the same one, at least in my experience. So like I have a couple different systems for animal AI because I wanted to see a system that was good at combat, and I also wanted a system that was good at herding and survival and stuff like that. And what I ended up with was one of my systems was really good at combat, not great at herding, not great at looking for water and stuff like that. The other system I had was really good at looking for water, herding, mating, all that stuff. The combat looked kind of slow and they look like AI, you know what I mean? And I'm now in the process of bringing those into harmony as a single system. and making sure that it doesn't tank my performance. But it does seem like he went to focus on the animals. From what I know of the animals, which I'm gonna make sure you know, I don't know exactly all the animals' behavior and stuff, but I would think that they're very basic activities. They're idling, they're walking around. I think they're eating food in the aisle. I don't know. In my game, they eat the food, so it's like you got to get to it before they do. That's part of the competition. Animals compete for food. So I think they eat the food, and then I know they attack, because I saw so many people complaining about how aggressive the
I still
dogs
need a
were and
good
stuff.
name. Hey go, I have a class RN, it's 9:45 p.m. in India.
Oh, all right. Well, have a good night, and do your best at school. I'll see you later.
I still
Thanks for
need a
stopping
good
by.
name. Bye. Team to know.
Um,
Probably to add easy RE so carnivores don't have to find other players for food, as you can't always find players.
You know, when the aisle wants to do something and they limit themselves from doing what they want to do, and in my own experience in development, usually it's for a really, really important reason, and it probably has to do with performance. There may have been a stability issue, or a performance issue, or a reliability issue with the AI, maybe not always behaving the way you want to, that caused him to take those more complicated ones out and put the more simple ones in. But I doubt it was for balancing purposes. I doubt that it was for making the game easier or harder for players. I really doubt that. I would think it has a lot more to do with, well, the dinosaurs, because the players are also playing dinosaurs. You would expect the dinosaurs to be able to do a lot of the same activities as the player. For example, not just walking around, but walking someplace with purpose, like looking for food, eating the food, maybe looking for a mate, going to water when they get thirsty, when they get sleepy, laying down to go to sleep. If they get into a fight and they get hurt, laying down to recover. Those have to be more complicated than just fodder AI, like rabbits running around and deer. So I would think that for performance purposes, they probably went the same route as the overall direction of the game, and that they are working on what they consider to be the basics. So in AI, the basics for them would be no, not dinosaurs, not Dilophosaurs, not Stego, rabbits and turtles and deer, acting like rabbits, turtles, and deer, not that intelligent. And then the next step up will be smarter AI, which will be the dinosaurs, which have some of the same abilities as the player, which is why we would say they're smarter AI than the regular fodder AI. I would think that's probably a more important driver for them. Let me see, because if you remember, a lot of the times that they were bringing up why AI was not in the game, or not was taking a long time, or not in the game yet, usually they were citing performance issues. Those were the issues people were citing. I rarely heard him mention, although I did hear him mention on the stream once, that the AI might have been a little too aggressive. But more often than that, he was citing performance issues, which would lead me to think that performance is one of the key requirements for a new AI to come into the game. It has to be below or at a certain bar. As long as it's not tanking or contributing to performance loss, then it can come in. If it is hurting performance, because some players do have rubber banding issues, they can't allow it to come in because it's only going to make that worse. I would assume that has to be the issue for that. But the idea, but it is still interesting that it doesn't say AI programmer. So, but he does mention that he's working on the AI. So, I do find it interesting that he's bringing up the anti-cheat.
Plus I heard they want AI to be much bigger to the game. They said they want 50 player servers, then just a bunch of AI. Don't know if that's still the plan, but I don't really like that idea.
Well, It's going to depend on how good the AI is, or how predictable the AI is. Because if the AI is immediately you recognize it as AI, it may feel repetitive to encounter the same creatures where they have predictable behavior. In my game, I do all I can to make them unpredictable. Like when they get thirsty in my game, they don't look for water all the time. There's a switch that says either they're looking for water right now, or they're going to walk around a little bit longer. So it's like you can't really predict, and it always changes, and it's random, and it's based on conditions that you don't control and are in a different random system, like the weather. Like they won't look for water all the time when it's raining, things like that. So if that is done as good as possible, it's possible that you would enjoy it still. 50 players plus a good AI, you may still enjoy that. You actually may enjoy it more, you know? One thing that I figured out is, you know, I don't want my AI to act like players. Players don't act naturally a lot of times, and a lot of people are interested in the genre for the realism.
It's always better to fight a player though.
Not necessarily the case. That may have always been the case up until now, but you may find that it can be enjoyable or even better to fight an AI, depending on the experience that it gives you. But yeah, because players don't act naturally, and people are so interested in realism and getting that natural immersive feel, I found, while working on my AI, I don't want my AI to act like players. I want them to act like animals. So I started working on them with different things in mind than simply, you know, having a certain amount of abilities. I want them to have a certain amount of judgments and options available to them that they choose in a way that makes sense for an animal, but can't really be predicted the way you can predict an AI or even a player. You can predict a player's actions a lot. Like, you know, new players who are trying to grow a dino are going to try to stay out of sight. They're going to be in a bush, you know. But, you know, that's part of this. I think that can work, or else I wouldn't be taking that route. So it is possible to get that done. I wonder about the performance. If they solve that, like, it's one thing to say, hey, that's the goal, but I wonder if they're planning that in the near future.
Team to know. It's more fun. It's like a game of chess, each player making a move.
Yeah, there's so much you can do when it comes to combat for AI that with players you just really don't think about. Like, you know, is it going to be tit for tat? Like, is it going to be the AI attacks you and then you attack them, move for move? Or is it going to be they're looking for an opportunity to get double hits? Or are they going to strategically retreat sometimes? Are they going to try to lure you into a trap? There's a lot of things you can do with AI that is really interesting. And you can go down a pretty long-ass rabbit hole if you're developing that code. But if we can get it done right, it'd be really rewarding. But yeah, it is interesting that they mentioned the anti-cheat thing. I tend to think that game teams keep that sort of stuff quiet because you want to catch people. You know what I mean? Here it looks like they're trying to deter people, but that's not going to deter people. People are going to do it, I mean, because the players are teenagers. You're not going to deter people by saying, we have rules and we expect you to follow them. You deter people with announcements of punishment. So it's like, if you are caught hacking, you know, you may lose your ability to play the game on Steam. We may Steam ban you, or we may have to do such and such, you know. I think this might be a little bit more of an explanation of, hang on, when did the animals come in? Because it's like, it feels like, I don't know why they're bringing it up, other than to say why he's not been working on the AI. Like, I've been busy with this one thing,
Team to know.
And now I'm going to be working on this other
Players
thing.
can make mistakes AI doesn't normally.
But they can be programmed to make mistakes. So it's not necessarily the case that an AI shouldn't make mistakes. AI should make mistakes because animals make mistakes. Animals get scared. Animals get scared and they do things that they don't do that aren't to their benefit because they're scared. Players do too, but it's like animals should do that, in my opinion. to make a good AI. AI should make mistakes that the player can capitalize on. Otherwise, it's like, you ever play chess against a computer? It's like they don't make any mistakes. You know, it's hard to play against a computer because everything's math to a computer. With humans, it's fear, it's guessing, it's doubting, it's all these things. But yeah, it is interesting bringing that up, not putting the AI on the programmer part. I wonder if they had it in the previous thing. Blog. So what was that, number 21? This is 21, so if we go back to 20. Wedge, tap wing. I don't see Amarok in 20. And we have December 16th, so that was just before the break. They came back on Monday, January 31st. Amarok. Oh, there was more to that post. I should have clicked on it. So he's missing in blog 20. Let's go to 19. Jesus. That was a big one, wasn't it? Alright, 19. He's there in 19. So I think he was just out of action. Oh, that's December 1st. Let me see. Hey all, this last year has gone by in a flash, and I hope you're all looking forward to the holidays. This past month for me has been spent developing some of server-side tools, which will eliminate the issue of servers not restarting properly, as well as making them significantly easier to manage on our end. They couldn't handle that without his help, it seems like. They had to pull him off of AI to take care of that. Based on feedback, the team and I are also reimagining our approach to the implementation of AI and the roles that they will fill within the ecosystem. We'll be able to share more specific details on that in the future. I've also been working on the ambient animals, continuing to make their behavior more dynamic and interesting to interact with, alongside improvements to the fish. Other than that, it's just been a plethora of bug fixes, performance tests as usual. That is for me. That's it for me this month. So not really saying, well, that's an indication that they're changing what AI are going to be, what role they're going to be playing, or rethinking that. Hello, this month I spent a bit of time working on the new monitoring tool for the team to use, as you have seen in some of the previews. This month includes the heat map where all the players are hanging out. We can use this for balancing the map design, to name a few functions. I have also spent a bit of time, it looks like he's investigating different functions for the game here, like the heat map thing. I don't think it's come out, but like I do a lot of the same thing. Part of my budget, part of the way I budget my time is part of that is investigating new functions that I can add to the game. They don't, sometimes you turn out using them, sometimes they lead to a dead end and you can't really put them in the game, but so you have to always be looking to push the boundary a little bit. Now burrows it now burrows after a certain distance and time spent running from the predator. It will eventually come out of the burrow. So here we're talking about animals, and we're calling them programmer now. Programmer. Let me see when's the last time it says AI. Am I spelling that properly? For whatever reason, I can't really. Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's been consistent. I remember last time I was looking at the thing. It always said AI next to him. I thought. I could be wrong. Anyways, that's all cool. But now, let's go and look at, was there anything interesting on the card here? Completed Dryosaurus. Copied this card from AI inhabitants and ongoing content. Nothing really to know there. Small map. Let's look at the map. All right. This is where they had the new guy come in. He was working on like the river and the waterfall in that place. We're going to be creating a smaller map to coincide with our small map, though, ever-growing playable roster for Evrima. This will provide a landscape that is more easily traversed and will make encounters with other players much more numerous. So it looks like they're trying to fix a problem here. A problem where they're not encountering enough players or AI. Let's see here. We're going to be... okay, so a smaller map. And they say creating a smaller map, and they don't say, like, limiting the current map. Copied this card from smaller map to ongoing content. There's no more smaller map board. Makes sense. So I wonder what they thought would
Team to know.
happen with the size of
I
the
like
map
this
they had.
idea.
Let's see here. So this last section that we have here are the actual dinos. I'm so sad. Why aren't they all in some of these updates? And why are a lot of them missing? We don't see Spino, Rex, Giga, Sucho, Baryonyx. Let me see, we have Bipaosaurus. This small Therizinosaur enjoys the comfort and security of the water, where it grazes on aquatic flora and the occasional fauna. It uses its massively clawed forearms to secure itself to the rocks and riverbeds, running strong currents as it grazes and searches for prey. I wonder... I don't know if that's going to be functional. I think this is just description, flavor text. Though swift and secure in the water, on land they are much less adept. But their impressive claws make them more than capable of putting up a fight for their small stature when they cannot find
Team
safety
to
in the
know.
water.
I forgot about Oviraptor. I want.
Yeah. Let me see. Status, pre-production, playable, omnivore. They say they have 100% of the model done, the high quality and the base. They have female done, they don't have male. They have the rig and the morph done, that means it grows. They have the animations. They don't have look poses. They have idols. You may get that one ahead of other dinos. Sounds, generic, broadcast. Maybe not. It looks like the last most of the activity on this was on the May. And completed item. It looks like she's working on this now. So it's getting animations. Let's look at the other ones. We already have carnivore. It's implemented, playable. However, it doesn't have everything. It needs its nest. So that's why it's back on the list here. They're developing the nest. We'll look at the card activity. Activity on the 28th. So it's going to be ready for nesting. Let's look at Cera. Pre-production, playable, carnivore. The stout carnivore easily recognizes the distinct nasal horns and its astonishingly robust digestive system that allows it to feed upon the most putrid carcasses without incurring any negative side effects. Got the model, they got the high quality one too. Got the female done. Base rig. Morph. Animation. Well, they have the basic rig. They don't have the morph done. In other words, I think this refers to their growth. I'm not totally sure. I don't know if they mean morph targets or if they mean the thing. Animation.
Team to know. Karato would be great to have in the game right now.
Yeah, it would be. There's a lot that needs to be done for it. Actually, this coincides with Gore. So there was movement on this on the 28th. Idle. So some of these. So there seems to be more activity on this than there is on the Bipaosaurus. So Cerato's is further along than that. Dinosuga's probably just gonna have the nesting needs to be done. Yep, nesting. That's it. So they want to do nesting for the Carnotaurus. They want to do nesting for the Deinosuchus. Otherwise, they consider those done. Let's look at Dilophosaurus. Pre-production. Significantly smaller than the Troodon. Significantly smaller than the Troodon? Really? The Dilophosaurus is a predator that favors nocturnal hunting. Equipped with exceptional night vision and a nasty venomous bite. So this guy has venom, which if inflicted after sunset will leave you wondering what's real. So this is the one that's going to bite you and you'll be tripping balls basically. We've got base and high quality mesh done. Female skin done. Basic rig.
Team to know. Larger than the Troodon.
This one looks like it's going to take longer than the Cerato. This card was moved from the Night Terrors to Inhabitants on May 7th. There's no other movement on this. There's nothing. So if there was no other movement for that long, it means it's integral to a certain other thing, which if they don't have the other thing, there's no point in even working on this at all, which I want to say it's going to be Night Vision, but Night Vision, I would think that this would be about as far along as Troodon. The Troodon is farther along than this, I think. If that's the one thing, it might be the Venom. You could tie it to Venom. You could also tie it to Night Terror. Let me see. Night Vision. There's a Night Vision here. Venom. It should be in here. And you're already going to have the night vision here. So if it were to come, it should come here. Ceratosaurus, if you had to put it, if we were going to say it's going to secretly pop up, it would probably pop up here at Gore. But if that were true, it's more likely you're going to have to choose between the Ceratosaurus and the Dilophosaurus on this card. If you don't, that's great because you get both. That means you would get 3 dinosaurs here. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like, you get a surprise, and not just that, you get 3. You get 2 extra dinos. You already have the system in place for the night vision for the Dilophosaurus, and this is when you implement venom and poison, so it would fit right in there. So that's more reason to add Dilophosaurus than Ceratosaurus. For Gore, Ceratosaurus makes sense. And Ceratosaurus, I think, is further along than Dilophosaurus. Also, we had recent movement on Ceratosaurus on January the 28th. So we know that's actively coming along. So if I had to guess, honestly, you have more reason to add Dilophosaurus, but you can look at it this way too. Here's your night vision dino. You get a night vision dino, and then you get Ceratosaurus, a different type for the Gore. So if they're gonna add a surprise dino, you put your Cerato here. You get 1 night vision. You get this. If you're really lucky, you'll get Dilophosaurus too, but there's no movement on the card. You're going to get the updated Carnotaurus and Deinosuchus for the nesting, and 5. Let me see. Let's see about this bipale. Oh wait, hold on. We got more stuff. We got Dryo's probably just gonna have nesting missing. Yep, nesting. I was gonna say, why could I click it? The Dryosaurus is just needing nesting. That's the only reason it's here. Let's look at the Gallimimus. Gallimimus pre-production playable. Okay, it has a base and a high quality model. It has both its male and female skins done. It has a basic rig. Morph not there. I'm assuming that has to do with growth. Animations. That's the killer. So let's see if there were any recent animations on it. Kissin did the skin on the 29th. Gallimimus relies primarily on its high speed and maneuverability to keep itself alive against pursuing threats. While its diet primarily consists of vegetation, the Gallimimus is an omnivore, allowing it to feed upon eggs and other dinos. That makes sense. I like the egg feeding. So I definitely think we're getting this later. What's this other one? Herrerasaurus. But yeah, that one has recent activity, which would make me think there's more energy behind this than there is behind Dilophosaurus. I'm not sure why.
Another great dino for the game now.
Yeah. I'm not sure why, because it seems like the best place to bring out Dilophosaurus is in that update, but there's no activity on the card. The last activity was last year in May. And we're getting close to the first update where you could release it, which is Night Vision, and then the next opportunity would be Night Terrors. And there's no movement on there yet. And one of the important things that you really want to have getting that close, if you were going to release it then, is the rig. There's no rig, no morph. So I would assume that this is coming later. I already looked at that one. Let's look at the Herrera. Herrera, pre-production, playable. The Herrerasaurus is one of the island's most colorful inhabitants. Okay, so it's going to be like a chameleon or something. This, at first glance, it may not seem as threatening as some other carnivores, but it is no less equipped to devastate the unsuspecting. If you find yourself in dense jungle, don't forget to look up. So this is the one that can climb. What would be really cool also is if it can camouflage. High poly, base model done, both skins, male and female, rig, okay, animation 0, sounds, nothing, mechanics, no mechanics, quality shit, nope, but we got movement. So recently the morph was done, the basic rig was done. There is energy behind this one. If we're gonna put it in, we say this one's full, this one's taken. It's probably gonna be, if we're gonna put something in here, Cerado or Dilophosaurus makes sense. Cerado looks like the leader in this system. Perk system. This update looks pretty bland, other than elders and perks. Nothing, no new dinos. So you can put any of the other dinos here. Could be Herrera, could be Gali, could be Bipeo. Let me see how far Bipeo is again. Bipeo is fully textured. Oh, sorry, fully meshed, missing female skin, fully rigged, fully morphed. That means baby. Animations, and it has recent energy. So this one actually has more energy behind it. Let me see Hipsy. Hipsy's probably just nesting. Yep, nesting. Completed morph. Oh, you're getting babies. Baby Hipsy. Makes sense. It's gonna come with the nest. Wow, I've been streaming for 3 hours and 50 minutes. I did not intend for it to be this long. I'm a very detail-oriented person, so I will sit here and
Mini
pour
duck.
over. I'll sit here and go step by step. So I should have went through it way faster. I should have thought about what I was going to say before I said it, before I got on here. Oh my god, I forgot all about the Kentro, dude. Look at Kentro. Kentrosaurus, this small stegosaurian is a shyer than its more robust cousin, but definitely no less formidable. Armed with a myriad of spikes, a whirl of its tail, and a well-timed shoulder check, could spell a bloody demise for the careless. So it'll be a bleed threat. It's got it's mesh fully done. It's got a female or male skin. No rig, no morph, so it's not coming anytime soon. Sounds, nothing. Mechanics, nothing. Not QA tested. Last time it was touched in May last year. Same deal as Dilophosaurus. In association with Cerato. So there's a Cerato in the thing here. There's a Oviraptor. Oh yeah, let me see about the Oviraptor. Oh, hang on, Maggie. Magiro, pre-production. The sauropod is able to eat food out of reach of other animals. So, hold on, I thought this was a small sauropod, allowing it to thrive in areas other herbivores wouldn't. Don't let its size fool you. It has a disposition as unsavory as its taste. I then don't understand why you would ever hunt it then, if things don't want to eat it.
Team to know. Ah yes, the Dino, that is the meme.
It has a full mesh. It has male skin. It has a basic rig. No morph, that means no babies. It's not coming in time. Animations, nothing. Sounds, nothing. Mechanics, nothing. Quality insurance hasn't been tested. It hasn't been touched since May last year. Okay. Oviraptor. One of the island's most colorful and infamous inhabitants. So they're trying to say this is going to be pretty prevalent. The Oviraptor earned itself the title Egg Thief for good reason. Preferences aside, the Oviraptor is an omnivore, allowing it to choose from a diverse selection of food sources, granting it a distinct survival advantage. Full mesh, male skin, has a rig, has morph, that means babies. Animations, nothing. Well, then I wouldn't make much of this then. Sounds, oh, it has sounds. Mechanics, this might be recent. Nope, it hasn't been touched since May 7th. So it looks like it has more interest.
The dev are just asking for Jaggy to killed for sport.
Yeah, fodder. It looks like it had more energy at the time.
Team to know.
But it fell off.
Maggie, I meant.
Fierce looking thing, huh? We have Packy, it's probably just misting nesting. Yep, just a nest. Same thing for Pteranodon. The only thing that's missing is nesting, probably. Yep, nest. So you're probably gonna get half this roster gone because they're all gonna be added back over once the nesting is added to them. Staggy. Nesting. Oh, they got the skin too. Denanto. There's no picture. But nesting. Yep. Let me see if they did a skin. Yep. Skin. Skin and nesting. Trudon. Trudon, 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 Trudon. Looks like they're trying to get this one ready. What? That has to be wrong.
Team to know. Oviraptor would be so good for the next update. It's an egg stealer, it's prefect.
Let me look at this again. Okay, this is a different card. Okay. Use our raptor. Nesting and skin, I'm sure. Nest. Complete the skin, yep. So you can expect Utah Raptor, Nest and Skin, Trudon, Nest and Skin, it's 2, Tenanto, Nest and Skin, Stegi, Nest and Skin, 4, Pteranodon, Nest and Skin, 5, Packy, Nest and Skin, 6. Hepsilophodon, Nest, Skin, and Baby, 7. Dryosaurus, Nest, Skin, 8. Deinosuchus, Nest, Skin, 9. Carnotaurus, Nest, Skin, 10. So 10 of these are going to be disappeared. That means that leaves us the Bipaosaurus, 1, Cerato, 2, Dilophosaurus, 3, Gallimimus, 4, Herrerasaurus, 5, Kentrosaurus, 6, Magisaurus, 7, Oviraptor, 8.
Maybe not tomorrow, but soon, for the rest of your life.
What about us?
8 dinos. There are 8 that could come over the next 4 updates. Well, I think I have reached the end here. So, just a review of the current theories. Dinos might be hidden for strategic or competitive purposes, so you could see surprise dinos pop up in the cards here. We know what those dinos are. There could also be dinos that are not here, but could also be added just as a total surprise at any point, which would be really cool if they did that. If that happens, I would have to have as one of the main reasons is competitive strategic purposes. They didn't want to get scooped. So there's a possibility of hidden dinos in certain updates, possibility of the development process is being delayed due to issues with, oh yeah, one thing I did not address.
Pulapot.
Pulapot. One thing I did not address was, one thing that may just be delaying the process is the same thing that's delaying me and a lot of other developers when I go look on message boards and stuff like that. Dude, it is frustrating as hell to be a developer. You get the game in a certain state, you go to bed, you fire up the computer the next day without changing anything, and the thing won't open the project for whatever fucking reason. Problems that you fixed months and months ago come back mysteriously. Why? Reasons. Pick one. It's like it's hard, man. Like, other than figuring out new implementations, maintenance is a huge fucking time suck when it comes to development, especially if you're talking about Unreal, which I love Unreal. It is a godsend. It's a beautiful tool. The people who made it are geniuses, but it is challenging. As good as it is, it comes with its challenges. So it could just be, I mean, some of the issues with the map, it may not have that much to do with the players as what it takes to support the size of the maps that they wanted to put in. I know they want it bigger. Everyone wants bigger, but you want bigger if you can run any other players, more AI, but you also want bigger so that you want bigger, but bigger can be unstable. I'm dealing with a map roughly the size of Isla Spiro. It's actually significantly bigger if you consider that a significant portion of the measurement, if what is on the wiki for the Isle is correct. Let me see. If this size is correct, whoops, that's not what I meant. I'm looking for the wiki. Here we go. I think this is like when they first put out Arena. So I think this is based on that. So this may not reflect the most current thing, but this is a 16 by 16 map, I think. Yeah, 16 by 16. Mine is currently like 17 and a half by 17 and a half. Mine would be significantly bigger because I'm not counting water. Basically is, I don't have all this water.
Team to know.
I have a lot of land.
Won't be
mountains.
surprised if the small map fixes a lot of the lag problems.
It could. It most likely will help. But it may not help that much. It's hard for me to explain why that is, but looking at this, I can't tell how they've implemented their map. But for me, like, there have been costs to having a map this big. Like, mine is bigger than this. And I have a lot more walkable land than they do. But it could be issues that I've run into with the map that they've run into with their map. Anytime in the middle of development and you're expecting new dinos and stuff, and they start talking about maps and shit, I think they're running into problems, technical problems, not just running into players. Because you know what you can do about players? You can have AI. You can also have spawn points, because they did address that with choose your region, that kind of thing. You can adjust that type of thing. If you're still having issues beyond that, I think the issues that they're having may actually be technical headaches. Could be. I could be completely wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're dealing with the exact same issues that I have. Anyways, yeah, and the process could also be delayed due to internal personal reasons for folks. You know, any one of these things
Team to know.
Contribute to the delay.
The amount of foliage on that map is also kinda crazy.
Yeah, but that actually speaks to how successful Unreal Engine is, because that engine is what allows you to put the amount of foliage that you see. We're not just talking trees. All this is foliage, the grass, every individual blade, like all this stuff. The engine has a way of doing foliage that lets you do ungodly shit that you used to couldn't do. It's amazing. But it's getting better, and Unreal Engine 5 is actually going to be even better than what they have now. But they actually do an excellent job with foliage, from what I can tell. I don't know what kind of problem they're having with their foliage, but I know what problems I have. But from what I can tell, what they do with their foliage is quite smart. Yep. And the shift in the roadmap. The last thing we were talking about, the shift in the roadmap favoring mechanics over playable dinos. It was always supposed to be the case that takes precedence, but in the beginning we saw the dinos with the updates. So it does seem like either for quality purposes or strategic or competitive purposes that dinos have been removed from the roadmap. It doesn't seem like it's going to be, it's not forever removed, but it certainly is delayed significantly. But yeah, I think I've gone over my thoughts. It's hard for me to go back and sum up everything over the past 3 hours. I did not realize I would be on here for this long. I need to get back to work on my own game. I was only supposed to be doing this as like a quick break. So I've slacked off. Anyway, I want to thank anyone who tuned in for tuning in. Thanks so much for showing up, Tano, and anyone else who's listening. Appreciate it. We'll see if we can get back to Path of Titans anytime soon. Hope you guys are having a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you enjoy the Isle. Let me know what you thought in the comments about the roadmap. You know, what do you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see. I'm interested. Or if you think you have some insight on how the development process for this game is going. There's nothing wrong with speculating, right? And theorizing. But it's interesting, right? The idea that the owl might be like making little secret moves and stuff like that. Anyways, guys, like, it'd be interesting one day if after this is done, they come out with like a tell-all of here's why it took so
Team to
long
know.
at that point when we were working on
Sire
everything.
TJ.
And they explain, oh man, you know, we were just really just fucking annoyed with the Path of Titans team. We didn't want them like jumping on riding our coattails every time we get ready to release a dino. Here they come, looking for comparison media. And it's like, it'd be interesting if that turns out to be why a lot of stuff took a long time, or why they moved things around or did what they did. Or if they come out and they're like, you know what, man, Unreal Engine, it was just a pain in the ass, and we had personnel that, you know, was not doing backups properly, so we ended up having to recreate the same dinos that we spent time on, or we got part of our file system corrupted. All these things could be possible. I have dealt with almost every single issue, except for the team stuff. I've only worked on my own game, but it is very interesting, the whole development process. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks. Hang on, sorry, gotta think. Thank you for waiting. As a reminder, if you're interested in my game, you can get to it on Steam. It is actually available, not fully released. It's in early access, and we've got just the free demo. It's called The Great Circle. It's it's an African survival game, and it is very cool. So it takes place in Africa. You can play as animals. You can play as... Wait for it. Look at the croc, deer, lions, humans, baby. That's a big part of this thing. We've got human gameplay in this. This is gonna be kind of comparable to like Grand Theft Auto, probably in all of its glory. By the end of when I'm done with everything. When we talk about the scope and the amount of things that we're going to be doing, it'll be like Grand Theft Auto in Africa in terms of the amount of stuff you will be able to do. But you definitely get animal survival, you get human survival, you get politics, you get a lot of stuff. There's going to be story mode. It's a really cool experience. Has the most animals in the genre, 87, and actually 88. There is an updated hyena coming out pretty soon. We've got ostriches. A lot of them didn't make it into the video here, but like, there's a lot of stuff that I've been working on. It's on Steam. You can play it for free, the free demo. The paid version is going to release for money, so there's going to be paid version, but you can play the demo for free to see if you like it. And
Team to know. I've lost count.
And yeah, lots of freaking animals, dude. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited for this game. Number one, probably for all the animal holders, man. There are more animals in this game than any other game in the genre. Any other. It's not close. It's 88 animals now. See that? It's a rock python. Not only do I have the rock python, I've got ball python, I've got black mamba, green mamba, puff adder, different snakes. We've got foliage that moves. We got everything. We've also got leopards, ostriches. We've got a lot of wildlife. But this is only part of the experience. There's just so much more that's coming. I think I'm going to blow your socks off. So even though I promise a lot, I only promise what I've pretty much already have got a really good handle on, or what I already know that I can do. The stuff that I am not mentioning is what people should be excited for. That's the part that's got me giddy. Anyways, Great Circle's the game. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to the analysis of the Isles Trello roadmap. Hope you found it insightful, or at least entertaining. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about at all. But anyways, see you later. I'll catch you later. Send me some comments. Peace.